hard. But you're a little low. Here. Here. You want to switch? We're getting some more water for you. Do you want me to get you some water? Yes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the December 2nd, 2003 meeting of the Haltom City Council. We want to begin tonight by welcoming all of you here, those of you who are in the council chamber, as well as those who are watching on HCTV. We're always glad to have our citizens present and interested in what's going on in Haltom City. I know we have just completed the Thanksgiving holidays, and we've got a lot of holidays ahead in the next 5 or 6 weeks. And I hope you had a good Thanksgiving, and I hope the Christmas and New Year time period will be a happy and a safe one for you and your family. We want to begin tonight with an invocation and pledge of allegiance. Councilmember Diane Branson will lead us in both of those.
Bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the blessings bestowed on each of us, for the opportunity for peaceful assembly, and the privilege of living in a country that values diversity and freedom so many others can only imagine. Help us to work earnestly, speak kindly, act sincerely, and choose thoughtfully the course which occasion and conscience demand. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have changed our agenda up just a little bit, and one of the first things we'll do tonight is in the area of announcements. We wanted to do those while everyone was here. We believe we have some important things to convey to you. And I'll begin. I have an announcement to make. Most of you probably already know, but some who are watching on HCTV may not be aware of the fact that our former city secretary, Helen Harris' husband, was fatally injured in an automobile accident last Saturday. And we extend to Helen and her family our deepest condolences. We extend our prayers and our sympathy to her. Helen was injured. One of the passengers was not injured. The other passenger, I believe, is in critical condition. So that entire family, we need to keep them in the midst of our celebration and our time of happiness and holidays. We need to keep that family in our thoughts and prayers. Fran Burns, our information officer, I believe, has a couple of announcements to make at this time.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to remind everyone that Thursday night, December the 4th, which is this Thursday, Keep Haltom City Beautiful, or the Haltom City Beautification Board, will be hosting Dickens on Broadway, the community's annual tree lighting ceremony. It starts at 6 o'clock, ends at 9. There's no admission fee, and there's lots of fun to be had. Hopefully, lots of people will show up in Dickens-era costume, and that even makes it more fun. Of course, we'll have our tree lighting and visits with Santa, carriage rides, train rides, foods concessions, craft vendors, music, storytellers, crafts for kids, and a special photo area, so be sure to bring your camera. All of this information is in the latest Proud and Progressive newsletter, and if you did not receive one, you'd like to pick one up, they're in the hallway on a table on the way out of this room. Secondly, I wanted to point out that this year marks the 16th year of our annual Images of Haltom City photo contest. and this has been such a success over the years that it's become quite competitive. And last year we got 277 entries. The deadline this year is January the 30th, and pretty much the same categories will apply. If you'll wait about a week, you can pick up a contest entry form at the library or here at City Hall. So with that, those are my announcements. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Mr. Muir, our acting city manager, you have 3 or 4 announcements I believe the citizens need to be made aware of.
Right, sure do. Broadway is open, and I don't know how you can miss it. It's we're very happy here, as I'm sure the businesses and residents are of this town, but we're very excited that Broadway is opened up, and the project's not finished yet, but it's close to it. But it is open for those that are watching that don't know about that. I don't know what.
Did Tom lose
How
his
about
sound?
this? Okay, can you hear me now? All right. Do I have to say it all over again? Okay. Broadway's open if the people in TV land couldn't hear that. Aside from that, the Haltom Road is milled, and the overlay will take place this week as well as on Walthall. I know a lot of residents along Haltom Road and Walthall are concerned about that. Hopefully that overlay will be happening, weather permitting, starting Thursday and be finished by the end of the week. So I just wanted to let the citizens know about that. And the final announcement I've got is a new library director. As some of you know that Rod Bland had been here 5 or 6 years. He left us a couple of weeks ago to go to Rowlett. I've named a new library director, and I'm wondering why she's not making her way to the podium yet. Ms. Leslie Smith, who has been with us for a couple of years. She has been a library director before in a smaller community in Kansas. She's been a branch manager for in the Dallas Public Library System, and we are excited and ecstatic to have her here to be able to assume this role, as her staff is also happy to have that. It's looking forward to the good things continuing at the library.
Thank you.
And if you've got anything you want to say, I didn't tell you I was going to do this to you. So.
No, you did. Could everyone hear me? I don't have anything to say.
Okay.
Anything further? Councilmember Williams, did you say earlier you have an announcement? Okay. We move now to the presentation, and we do have a presentation tonight, and to tell us what this presentation is all about, our information officer, Fran Burns, if you'll come back to the podium.
Sure. A couple of weeks ago, we got a phone call from a resident. His name is Mr. George Simmons of Hadley Street. And he had explained to us that he had a problem. He's a handicapped individual. He's in a wheelchair. He was traversing his road and hit a pothole or something and was in trouble and out of his chair. And people passed him by in cars and didn't stop to help. But a young person named Earl O'Gorman, actually stopped to help him out, and he wanted to recognize him publicly. So Mr. Simmons is here, and so is Mr. O'Gorman. So could they please come forward? And I think Mr. Simmons has a presentation to make, and then we're going to come back later and give him a certificate from the city.
This is one of the real neat things I get to do as mayor, and it's a special time for the city to be able to do something like this. We have a lot of heroes in Haltom City. We have a lot of very, very special people, and we have 2 of them here tonight, and we want to celebrate that. And you heard Ms. Burns' explanation of what had happened, and it's my pleasure at this time. The City of Haltom City presents a certificate of recognition to Earl O'Gorman. Is that your name? Okay. You want to come around here a little closer? Earl, we present this certificate of recognition to you for being a good Samaritan. and for providing aid to Mr. George Simmons of Hadley Street, because while others passed by, you chose to stop and assist a fellow resident in need, and Mr. Simmons thinks enough of you and was so impressed by that he wanted to say you're a hero to him and to a lot of us in Haltom City. So as mayor of this city and on behalf of the staff and the entire council and all of our citizens, we want to join Mr. Simmons in saying thank you very much. We want to recognize you for being a good Samaritan and choosing to stop and assist this gentleman in need. So it's my pleasure to present to you at this time this certificate of recognition. May we give him a hand? Great.
I have a couple of things here for him myself. It's a little wreath, but I make crafts at my house while I'm not doing anything. And this is a card of appreciation, and I do appreciate you. There's not many young men that'll stop and help somebody.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Mr. Mayor, is Mr. O'Gorman's, is his parents here, and they might want to get a photo also.
Do we have, thank you, Councilmember Fowler. Are the parents and family of Mr. O'Gorman here? Come on up. We do want to get a picture of you. I know you're
Mr.
proud
Simmons?
of this young man, as all of us are.
Mr. Simmons,
Mr. Simmons, do you mind coming back over this way, or we'll come to you, which...
maybe he set a good example for his little brother.
Thank you.
That'd be okay?
What we have just seen, ladies and gentlemen, is not only the spirit of Christmas, but the spirit of Haltom City. And we are so thankful to be able to be a part of this. We move now to the consent agenda. Item number 2 and item number 7 have been pulled from the consent agenda. Number 8. What did I say? Number 8. Okay, item number 2 and item number 8 are being pulled from consent. What this means is that with one action by the council, the other 10 items will be approved, and then we'll back up and address item number 2 and then item number 8. I'm ready for a motion regarding the consent agenda. Councilmember Fowler.
Move for approval of consent agenda.
Councilmember Sutton.
That's for a second, Mayor.
We have a motion and a second to approve consent without items number 2 and number 8. If you will, register your vote. And that passes by unanimous vote. We come now to item number 2, and Mr. Muir, would you like to introduce this item? This is a second reading, I believe.
Yes, Mayor. This is for an ordinance, a second reading of an ordinance calling for a charter election. Over the past year, a group of citizens called the Charter Ethics Review Committee has reviewed the charter to come up with some possible changes, proposed changes, and I think they had 16 different items there. The first reading of the ordinance for the charter election passed at the last council meeting. This reading would set the charter election for February 7th, the next general election date for the state. I'm recommending that we pull this and table it indefinitely in lieu of the later agenda items that are presented to you tonight regarding the recall. Having a separate election for the charter other than with the recall election. I think it's been my experience that having it tagged, especially with that or with some other election, is going to be detrimental to whatever we're trying to do with the charter election. And that was my recommendation. Now, in the pre-council, there was some discussion about doing some other things, and I'm sure those council members would like to express their opinion as well.
Okay, before we go to the council members, Mr. Muir, we do have one appearance before the City Council, speaker's request form filled out by Mr. Mike Stewart. Mr. Stewart, if you'll come forward at this time, you have an opportunity to address the council regarding the charter election. If we need you to come up, even if you are not going to say anything, we need everybody to be able to hear it, especially the people on HCTV.
Mr. Mayor, if it's all right, I'd like to defer to the council and hear their comments first before I say anything, if that's all right.
No problem.
Okay.
No problem with that. Members of the council, you've heard the recommendation by Acting City Manager Tom Muir that this item be tabled indefinitely. What is the pleasure of the council regarding item number 2? Councilmember Fowler?
Mr. Mayor, are you ready for a motion, or would you just want for discussion?
I'm ready for a motion.
Okay. And one reason that I'm proposing one amendment to this second reading would be the fact that, in light of the having 2 recalls in 1 year, obviously we have a citizenry that feels like that the way that the recall portion of our charter is written, I personally feel like that doesn't ask for change or doesn't necessitate change at this time. So I guess in that being, I would like to ask that we amend the ordinance to remove the recall initiative and referendum, which is section Proposition 7, which all that would do was just, it would remain the way it is currently. It wouldn't change anything at all as far as recall, how many signatures it would take, the timing, anything else. We would just continue to maintain the way that we're currently having the application or the process for recall. So I would like to ask my council members to consider that as a motion, as an amendment to the second reading.
Okay, so you're suggesting, or you're making a motion to approve the ordinance on second reading with the elimination of item number 7,
Yes,
Proposition
sir.
7.
That is correct.
Okay,
Which would leave the charter the way it's currently written.
Right. Okay. Members of the council, you've heard the motion. Do we have a second to that motion? Councilmember Hurley?
That's second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Williams?
Have some discussion when you're ready.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion?
I have some when you're ready. I have some discussion on the motion when you're ready.
Okay. We're ready for the discussion.
Is there a representative for the Charter Review Board? Is a chairperson or co-chairperson here tonight?
It'd be Ms. Spencer.
Would you like to speak, Ms. Spencer, or would you like to defer to Mr. Stewart? I'd like to have Mr. Stewart come forward. Is there anybody else that wants to represent the board? Okay. I may have some questions from Mr. Spencer.
You know, there are several.
Several what?
Several committee members. Mr. Hester,
How many? Could I have them stand where I know what I'm speaking with?
Ryan, Mr. Hester,
Everybody was on the charter review.
Mr. Hack.
If y'all could give them a hand, they worked a long time on that. A lot of hours. Thank you. I think Mr. Hack may have some comments in a moment. Mr. Stewart, I know and I appreciate all the time that y'all spent on this. I know a lot of hours went into it, and I understand y'all read this document completely all the way through.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything on this document that you feel might be detrimental to the document from keeping it passing?
In terms of what? I mean, are you looking for something specific?
Well, I guess just get straight down to the point. First, there's an item on there about term limits, changing the term limits from 3 years to
From 2 years to 3 years? Or
well, it's doing away with it, isn't it?
Right, from eliminating.
It's
well,
three terms now, and then
There was some discussion, and I think the consensus of the committee was that the voters could decide if there was someone on the council that they didn't want in there, and the vast majority of the committee voted to do away with term limits, and that's what we recommended to the council.
With that being on that, do you see, and I'm probably best that I got you to come up here, because do you see a problem with that being a stumbling block? There are some very important items on this charter review that need to be passed. Am I right or am I wrong?
That's correct. Well, there are several. I think Mr. Sutton pointed out there were 3 or 4 that will change the charter to comply with new state laws. Those are important to be addressed. As far as term limits are concerned, I don't think it's going to be a stumbling block. Personally, what I feel isn't important. However, I think the voters can make their feelings known at the polls. If they don't want term limits eliminated, they'll vote against that provision on the charter and leave it the way it is.
Well, it's important to me that you're sold on it, because I want you to be a salesman for this along with the rest of the committee members that work so hard on this. And I would hate for any other kind of election to cast a cloud on this. I know we discussed earlier that possibly the putting this off until the May election, and I think Mr. Fowler had pointed out that he didn't really see any difference between the May election and this election, and possibly I'd asked the city manager earlier today about possibly a September, or is it August or September?
August.
In August, to have it stand alone. And bearing politics what they are in Haltom City right now, there could be a recall at any time. The way the charter is actually written now. Do you feel that this charter could pass at this time with everything else that's going on?
On a February date?
Yes, sir. If
we
call a recall election in February and then we mix this charter election in with it, do you see that hampering that election any whatsoever?
Personally, yes, sir, I do. I think the feelings are running so high in Haltom City now, pro and con, that it would cloud the charter to the point where some of the major provisions that need to be seriously addressed would be overlooked or not voted on at all. It could jeopardize the whole charter change, and as Mr. Muir pointed out, if nothing is done at this time, it's going to be 2 more years before the charter can be reviewed again.
Right. Well, we don't exact attorney, Mr. Wade.
Yes, sir.
The charter review turned us this document in. Now, am I correct in saying that we could do this in February, we could do it in May, or we could do it in August,
That's correct.
or in November?
Any of the 4 uniform election dates would be appropriate for a charter amendment election. Mr. Stewart is correct that if you have a charter amendment election, you would be prohibited then from having another charter amendment election for 2 years.
Do you think that you could oversell this and still get it to pass in February? Do you think you could educate the voters on that between now and February?
My honest opinion, no.
Yes, sir. Okay.
I don't think I could.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. You might want to remain there. Let me ask anyone else on the council any discussion before I call for the vote. Councilmember Sutton, if you don't mind, Mr. Stewart, you might take a seat close to the front. We'll call you back up. You'd asked to speak before, after the council members had spoken.
I just had a question for the attorney. From what I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, whenever the charter is not in agreement with a state statute or a state ordinance, the state ordinance would prevail regardless of what is written in our charter. Is that true?
That is correct. The Texas Constitution says that a home rule city cannot have anything in its charter or any ordinance that conflicts with state law, so the state law would preempt anything you have in your charter that's in conflict with it, even though you haven't amended it.
So over the 3 or 4 items which have previously been said are very important because they're not in compliance with the state, actually getting those changed is a matter of housekeeping, because what would legally happen is that the state ordinance would override the charter if we came into that type of legal conflict. Is that true?
That's true. Although
Okay.
if you have something in your charter that conflicts with state law and somebody reads it and they don't know what the state law is, then it can become a matter of confusion.
For the sake of confusion, yes.
Yeah.
But practically speaking, in terms of the legal protection for the city,
You would have to comply with the state law regardless of what's in your charter.
correct? Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, Mr. Stewart, you want to address? Okay. I want to make just a brief statement before I call for the vote. As a rule, the mayor does not vote, and when you have 7 people here, it's very unlikely that he'll have an opportunity to. And I don't know if I'll have an opportunity to vote on this one or not. But in the event I do, I will be voting against the motion. I'm very concerned about having such an important election as amending the charter at the same time we have the recall taking place. I know there can be backlashes. Things can go in all different directions. When there's unrest in the community, it can certainly jeopardize the possibility of the charter election passing. So if we do end up in a tie, I will be voting against the motion as it currently stands. Councilmember Fowler?
Mr. Mayor, I just have a quick comment on that. This is, if I'm correct, is this second reading of this item?
Correct.
So this was already set in motion long before the potential recall, which would be on first reading later in this council meeting. Is that correct? Or it would be on its resolution, which would be its first and one and only reading. Okay, I just want to make sure. I just don't want the citizens. I think our voters are smart enough to decipher between a charter amendment and a recall. The business of the city can't stop just because we're having a recall election. I mean, this is the second recall election we've had in less than a year. So this being on second reading, I don't see how that we can just, these are things that need to be looked at, and that this body of individuals has taken a great deal of time and worked for, and I hope that we're able to give our voters a lot more credit than that they're able to go into the ballot box and make a decision on a charter separate from a recall. And that's my reason for asking that we move forward with this, because this was already planned to be held in February, and I don't see where we need to change everything we're doing in the city because of a recall election.
Councilmember Branson?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to remind the council that at the first reading, it was recommended that we have the election in May with the other election, and it was voted down because you wanted it on its own election day. So I guess something's changed between now and then to change your mind on that, because 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, you wanted it on its own election day, not with another election.
Okay. Any further comments on the motion? Councilmember Williams?
I got one question. When was the Charter Review Committee, when did we vote on putting them together, and when did they start working on this? Was that before the recall petition?
Are you asking when the council started appointing?
Yes, when we appointed the people to
It was
the...
about a year ago, as in, I think December of '02 is when it started. They had their first meeting in March of '03, I believe.
Okay, so
And
there's been a council election since that committee has been formed.
Certainly, yes.
That's what I thought.
Okay, no further questions. I'll call for your vote. The motion before us is to approve on second reading the calling of the charter amendment election with the elimination of proposition number 7. If you will, register your vote. Okay, and that passes by a 4-2 margin. And we'll move forward then to item number 8. I'm sorry, did you get that vote?
Yes, Mayor, but I believe that we were going to, for the audience, since they could not see the board, mention the council members and their votes.
We did talk about that last time.
Okay. Go ahead.
And can you please have them put their votes back up? Right. I wanted to make a note for the people out in the audience because they couldn't see how it was voted, that Councilmembers Sutton and Branson voted nay, and the remaining of the council did vote for.
Okay, for clarity on my part, I was absent for most of the last meeting. Is this procedure we're going to do on every vote?
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay. Councilmember Williams?
Make notation in your notes that Tracy Henderson is absent on that vote, please.
Okay. Item number 8 is an item to consider and/or action on approval of a car allowance for the city secretary. I'm in line for a motion regarding that item. Councilmember Williams,
Move to
your
approve.
light came on first, and then Councilmember Fowler.
Move to approve.
Move to approve. Councilmember Fowler?
This is the same as was discussed in the last executive session, is that correct?
That is correct.
I'll second the motion.
Have a motion to approve and a second to that motion. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, there being none, if you'll register your vote, I will display it at this time. And Madam City Secretary, are you planning to?
That was, okay, the Councilmember Sutton, Councilmember Branson voted no. The remaining of the council voted yes, with Councilmember Henderson absent.
Okay. All right, that concludes the consent agenda. We move now to a public hearing. Item number 13, Mr. Pliska, if you will, come forward, introduce this, explain the item, and we'll proceed from there.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, citizens of Haltom City. This item is conditional use 004-03 to conduct a public hearing and consider the application of Mr. David A. Lowry on behalf of Bonham Incorporated for a conditional use permit to operate a community sanctioned center services on property zone M2 Heavy Industrial District on Lot 1, Block 1, Wallace Addition, containing approximately .556 acres of land located on the north side of Airport Freeway, locally known as 4909 Airport Freeway. The accompanying ordinance is Ordinance O 2003-03715. Consideration and/or action regarding approval of an ordinance amending Ordinance O 2002-03215 as amended, the comprehensive zoning ordinance of the City of Haltom City for a conditional use permit to allow for the operation of a community sanctioned center services on property zone M2 Heavy Industrial District on Lot 1, Block 1, Wallace Addition, containing approximately .556 acres of land and locally known as 4909 Airport Freeway, and this will be the first reading of said ordinance. As stated previously, the site is located on the north side of Airport Freeway, and the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit with site plan approval in order to operate a community sanctioned center facility on this site. The existing zoning is M2 Heavy Industrial, and the land use at this time is vacant. I list for you the adjacent zoning and land uses in the area. As for the comprehensive land use plan, the site is designated as a commercial district according to the city's comprehensive land use plan. Therefore, the requested use would not be in compliance with the land use plan if it were considered a rezone. Access to the property would be from Airport Freeway. In a brief analysis, the site is zone M2 Heavy Industrial District and does not allow for this type of facility without a conditional use permit. As stated in the attached letter, Bonham Incorporated provides residential correctional rehabilitation services to individuals referred by appropriate committing authorities. As a government facility, this type of service is a permitted use with a conditional use permit. We did do a legal notification. We did it in October of 2003 through the Northeast newspaper. Property owner notification instruments were sent out to all properties within 200 feet of the site, and 18 properties were notified. Staff received 1 in favor and 0 in opposition. However, at the November 11th, 2003 P&Z Commission, we did have a packed house that night. We had about 35 to 40 people, and 12 representatives of neighborhood people and groups spoke against this. At their meeting on November 11th, 2003, the P&Z Commission voted unanimously to recommend denial to the City Council for a conditional use permit CU 004-03 for this council.
Members of the council, any questions for Mr. Pliska? Almost forgot your name. Before I open the public hearing, Councilmember Williams?
Mr. Pliska, this piece of property that they're wanting to do this is, has it ever been a residence, the building, has it ever
No, sir.
housed any authority?
No, sir. The prior tenant was a wholesale parts distributor.
Sort of a warehouse type deal, so they'd have to do it.
Business, yes, sir. Office warehouse. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further, Councilmember Williams?
Sure.
Councilmember Fowler, and then Councilmember Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Pliska, I've been contacted by quite a few residents in the area and business owners down in that part of town, as well as some other areas in town that have shown concern against this. It shows that one property notification was in favor of that. Was that the property itself? Or?
Yes, sir. It would have been the property owner who would be leasing the facility to
Okay.
Bantam Incorporated.
Okay. One other question. Out of the individuals that came to speak, did you have any in favor of this conditional use application?
Yes, we did, Councilmember Fowler. We had a reverend gentleman from Fort Worth. I believe his name was Reverend Grady Schultz of Fort Worth, who spoke in favor of the request. He stated that he works in these type of facilities and stated that this type of facility does not hamper development in the areas where the facilities are located.
But he doesn't live here nor owns property in
No, sir.
Haltom City?
He stated that he reside in Fort Worth.
Okay. And out of the others that spoke, they were all in opposition of this request?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Sutton?
Thank you, Mayor. I understand that there was several things that were seemingly not making this the best place for a halfway house. One of those being that it was 1.5 miles away from public transportation, and usually a halfway house it needs to be put within 1 mile of public transportation. Is that true?
That is correct. Bantam Incorporated, the representative, Mr. Lowry, did state that they did seek a facility that would be within 1 mile of mass transit or for a bus system. However, this facility was located 1.5 miles from the Fort Worth system, and that if they were approved with the conditional use permit, that they would be transferring them to that point,
Okay.
to which the inhabitants of this facility could then pursue their working careers.
I see. And also, along with that, that the path that they would be taking to that public bus depot or whatever would be tangential with the path of elementary school children going to school, too.
That is correct. Some of the residents that lived in the area and were located near there did believe that that path would counter effect this use.
Okay. I've also heard that this company that does this type of work may be involved in a lawsuit with residents in Washington, D.C. Have you heard anything about this lawsuit?
No, sir, I have not. The only other information, other than the application information that's provided in your packet, that I did receive was that they were seeking an alternate site in Fort Worth.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Okay, at this time, I'll open the public hearing. First, Mr. Lowry, are you in the audience? Are a representative for Mr. Lowry? Okay, I don't believe there is. Councilmember Fowler, did you have something before
I was just in line for a motion whenever you're ready.
Okay, hang on to that, and we'll be back to it in just a moment. Since this is a public hearing, do we have anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this request to put in the Community Sanction Center? Okay, there being none to speak in favor of, I do have 2 speakers' request forms. I should have made that clear at the beginning. Because this is a public hearing, you did not need to fill out one of these. However, since you have, we'll call on you first. Both of these are speaking against the Community Sanction Center that we have under consideration. And after these 2 speak, then I'll ask if there's anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on this. Mr. Bill Fagley, I believe, if you would come forward at this time. Give us your name again once you get to the microphone and address for the record. Please.
Hello, I'm Bill Fagley. I live at 5033 Catalpa, Haltom City. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight and allowing me to speak. it's nice to have a city forum that allows you to give positive and negative comments. I appreciate that. I would like to speak against a federal halfway house. They've been using another name for it, but that's what it's going to be, a federal halfway house. That's going to be put in Haltom City, or they're trying to put in Haltom City. My wife and others in previous council meetings and in the zoning commission spoke and gave many comments. I just want to give a brief summary of what they already said. You've already mentioned about the public transportation problem that they've got. They're going to have to be walking in the same route with my elementary kids, also with junior high kids and high school kids going to school every day. There's also a problem with what are these people going to be doing when they get out off work? They're supposed to work 8 hours a day, but then they'll also be in the community for 8 hours before their lights out period of time. So whenever we see these people walking around, are they going to be the people that are at the halfway house that are supposed to be in our community, or are they going to be a vagrant that we don't know? Am I supposed to go ask everybody that walks by my house if they're supposed to be in my neighborhood or not? I just would like to get to know my community better and keep people that are going to be in my community for a long time that want to be here, instead of moving in and out of sorts. There's some that say that it won't affect the property values, but I don't have any documentation that says it won't. But I just know my own gut feeling is that I wouldn't want to live in an area that had a federal halfway house in it. So I would think that that would not be my first choice, so that would decrease my property value. My final point was the view from the freeway. People driving to work in Fort Worth every day will be passing by this, and that will be their representation in Haltom City, is its federal halfway house. And just wanted to make sure that that was not what Haltom City wanted to present to the area neighborhoods as well. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Fagley. Members of the council, any questions for Mr. Fagley? Okay, there being none, Mr. Maurice Perkins, if you will, come forward, give us your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Maurice Perkins. I live at 1810 Haltom Road. And the reason that I came back tonight, because I was in the planning and zoning meeting, and I must say it went real well, because the presentation and then everyone that was up there asked questions. And I believe the first one that asked a question was Mr. Dunn, and he said right off that he was against it. And I applauded the man for that, because he didn't beat around the bush and everything. And I think Haltom City has had about enough bad publicity. I think we need to reestablish ourselves. We have a good place here to live, to raise our families, and to send our kids to school. And where this particular part is going to be, it'll be less than 3 miles from Oak Knoll Elementary School. And we live in a neighborhood where there are children playing. And one of the things that I see about that is this: we have lots of opportunity to address other areas on 121. And at the Planning and Zoning Committee, there was a gentleman on Van Tex right there that would be next door to this place. And he was very adamant, and he's right. If it was approved, he would be looking for another place to do his business, which amounts to over $1 million a year. And I think that we need to look into bringing things into our area that will be an asset to it and that will enhance our city and get rid of some of the stigma that we have had to go through. And I believe firmly that we should deny it, get it behind us, and I'll guarantee you, each one of you can give Haltom City an early Christmas present by voting 100% against it, just as the zoning committee has done. And I really believe that we can come through this, and we'll be a stronger group, and we'll be a stronger city, and we deserve it. We deserve everything that we can. We need to start filling some of the emptiness in our shopping centers. We need to try to attract new business. We have Walmart that's going in down here on Beach and 121. That's not Haltom City. But believe me, there is a good possibility that from 121 east, there could be a lot of things that might be considered just because of Walmart. It creates a lot of traffic and a lot of things, and people will be going up and down the excess road of 121. And I appreciate the opportunity of letting me share these moments with you, and it's my encouragement that you will follow the result of what your zoning committee done and vote 100% and give Haltom City an early Christmas.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins and Mr. Fagley. Do we have, how many in the audience here tonight are here because of this issue? Okay. Is everyone in agreement with what these two gentlemen have said? Okay. Since this is a public hearing, I need to ask, is there anyone else who wishes to speak against this? And you're certainly welcome to do so, but in the interest of time, if you have anything in addition to say to what these gentlemen have said, I would encourage you to speak at this time. If you're going to just say the same thing over again, you've raised your hand and indicated already your level of support in this regard. Okay, there being none who wish to speak further, I close the public hearing at this time. I'm ready to move now to the corresponding ordinance, and Councilmember Fowler mentioned a moment ago he's ready to make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Due to the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and my own individual beliefs that this would not be of the highest and best utilization of this piece of property, I would like to recommend denial of ordinance number 0-2003-037-15, conditional use, also 004-03.
Okay, a motion for denial. Councilmember Sutton.
Mayor, that's for a second. I also believe that this is not the best use of the land that is at that location, and I also understand that these services are currently supplied by Volunteers of America here in this town. So I would also be in favor of seconding this motion.
Councilmember Hurley.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. If you're ready, gentlemen, I'll call for the vote at this time. Okay. Okay, so the motion, do you want to?
He had a good point.
And that was for unanimous vote.
Okay, so what we've just done is to deny the request for this conditional use permit for the halfway house. We move now to item number 14. This is an item placed on the agenda by Councilmember Williams. Councilmember Williams, would you like to introduce that at this time, and then we'll proceed from there.
Mr. Mayor, could some of these people may want to go home? Is there a way we can maybe take a 5-minute recess? And
we can,
all right?
sure, we can do that. If some of you who were here just for some of the items that have been discussed so far, if you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're certainly welcome to. We will take a 5-minute stretch break if you need to, if you'd like to leave. And if you do leave, thank you for coming and thank you for your interest in this subject. Every nerve in your body goes to the first degree vertebrae, except the optic Ladies and gentlemen, we are back now in open session. We're ready to address item 14. This item, as I indicated before we took a break, was placed on the agenda by Councilmember Williams. Councilmember Williams, would you like to introduce this item at this time, and we'll proceed.
Thank you. We have a resident, our property owner here in town, our property representative, Mr. Jimmy Grazan. He wanted to come before the council and have some dialogue with the council. He and a friend of his brought it to my attention that a couple of years ago at a council meeting that I had said that if anybody ever wanted to put something on the agenda to come see me because there was accusations made that we were a closed council and we wouldn't let anybody come talk to us. And so sometimes back in, is my light on? Y'all can't hear me? You hear me now? All right. Back sometime in year 2000, someone made some accusations this council wouldn't want to be responsive to anybody and didn't want to listen to anybody. And I made a comment at the council meeting one night that if anybody had something put on the council agenda that they wanted to put on there, unless it was just absolutely ridiculous, to contact me and I would put it on there. And Mr. Grazan is exercising that promise that I made to the voters at that time. So if Mr. Grazan wants to come to the podium at this time, he'll come and...
There's one thing unrelated to what we're doing here that I'd like to, a little statement I'd like to make, if you don't mind. I had the pleasure of running into David Averett's wife, Ruth, this evening, or this afternoon, and visiting with her, and she's been through a stroke, and she's walking and getting around extremely well for what she's been through. I just wanted to share that with those of you that weren't aware of it. At any rate, what, in the essence of time, this council meeting is going to be quite a long one, and therefore I have wished for a resolution. I worded myself wrong, I suppose, when I talked to Ms. Stab, but basically there's several articles of discussion between the staff and myself that just doesn't come to a head. So I'm going to ask to be put on the agenda for the next meeting, and hope I can make it, where I do wish to have action by the council. I have a handout that I'd like to hand to you, kind of expressing my concerns and my thoughts, but there's several things that come to mind. When I had a meeting with Mr. Torres and Mr. Poliska, Dennis Black at 6208, one thing that was discussed was van box trailers. I was told that by Mr. Poliska that you can't have a storage trailer in the city of Haltom City. You could have work trailers. I'd like to know the difference. I've been employed by Fruhoff to move trailers. I never seen one that said work trailer on it. We're having a real concern about whether we're in the floodway or not. I happen to live in this city and be around this city when that first came up, and it was my understanding that what created the floodway was the bridge on 121 and Carson Street on Little Fossil. It was explained to me by the Corps of Engineers that should a major flood occur, the Little Fossil would come out of its banks and cut its way toward the Big Fossil in search of the Trinity River. What caused this problem was the 121 freeway. It made a natural levee, if so to speak, to cause this action. But in no way, shape, or form is our land placed, definitely not north of 121, and definitely west of the Little Fossil. But what really concerns me is the fact that under the direction of code enforcement, a lot down from us, a man put up a metal fence. Nothing was said about floodway or a breakaway fence. I could go on with these issues, but I wish not to do that at this time. I wish to give you my handout and relinquish this time for better use, and with the thought that I would like to be put on the agenda for consideration and action at the next meeting.
Questions or comments for Mr. Roseanne by members of the council? Councilmember Williams?
Mr. Exam, we've got your letter here, and we'll read it. Each council member will read it. We will get with city staff and speak with them, also with the city attorney, and see what our options are. And if you want to get back with Brenda at a later time and place something, or just contact the city secretary, and I'll have would it be all right to have Mr. Muir contact him after y'all read those issues on the piece of paper and get back with him, Mr. Muir? Is that okay, Mr. Grzan?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Muir has been most cooperative, and it just appears to me that every time we think we have things kind of ironed out, it just gets into another forest, and I'm searching for a way to bring this piece of property to a head. I'd like to have something in black and white. Thank you. Any other questions?
I believe not, Mr. Roseanne. Thank you very much. We move now to item number 15, Town Hall meeting. This was placed on the agenda by Councilmember Williams. Councilmember Williams, would you like to introduce this item for us at this time, please?
Thank you, Mayor. If there's any small children in here, anybody with a weak mind, you might want to get up and leave, because some of the language in this I'm going to read is not real good. And David, you can bleep me out when you get a chance back in the TV.
Councilmember Williams, I have never allowed, while I've been mayor, the use of four-letter words and obscenity and profanity from any member of the audience, and I'd like to ask you to abstain from using that. I think you
I will try my best, yeah. Let's just give him a hand. Yeah, give him a hand.
If you would, please.
Yeah, I'm going to do the best I can. Mr. Mayor, I get these letters in the mail. Well, the problem is in Haltom City, I think we need a healing process. I think there needs to be some serious dialogue together between the council members, between citizens. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of cruelness. There's a lot of disrespect. This job on the council is supposed to be a position that you're looked up to. In the last 24 months or so, that's in Haltom City, it's got away from that. I had suggested to the city manager about having a town hall meeting, having these people that's got the complaints, people sending in the complaints, people hiding behind emails. You know, you can't fix what's broke unless you know what's wrong with it. You got a tire going down your car, stopping and airing it up is not going to repair it. You need to find out what the problem is, fix it, and go on. That's what we need to find out in Haltom City, what the problem is, fix it, and go on. I've got a letter here. I'm going to read excerpts of it, Mr. Mary, and I'll try my best to catch myself on the four-letter words, but they didn't do it when they mailed them to me. Most honorable council member, what is this? I've seen ugly people before, but you are the all-time champ for the world's ugliest, crookedest, thuggedest, fattest, biggest, fake, biggest, blank, 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 most blank bum. As I've seen many times before, you just can't stay out of trouble, can you? You big, ugly, fat blank. I look forward to reading the newspaper each day because I know your ugly mug is going to be there on the front page. You're indeed a great poster boy for the trashy Haltom City. What are you and your idle boy, can I say queer Trey, doing in this picture? Sorry, Trey. Trying to conspire to think up some more lies about Richard Torres. You both should be run out of Texas. You always have been just a wannabe, too stupid, illiterate, high school dropout to even have a decent job, much less hold an office in a decent city. Nice to see you're not smiling, so we don't have to look or be subjected to those yellow, long, fake-looking, wooden, false teeth. By the way, why hadn't we seen your ugly, fat, blank wife lately? Have you killed her already, or something in a fit of rage? You two are a perfect for each other. You two take two undesirables out of circulation. Do the world a favor, just go and jump off a cliff or something. You're costing the taxpayers money, time. You already made a blank blank of yourself, and you repeatedly make a blank of yourself. You'll never change because you're a blank blank. We all know that you love the limelight and publicity, but I just guess you can't keep your fat blank because you're so stupid that you think you're so cute. You're such a bad joke. This is the stuff you get for $20 a month. My wife does not have anything to do with Haltom City politics. The handwriting on this will be up here. Anybody wants to look at it when you get through. It appears to be the handwriting of a female. The language, I would hope, came from a man. I want to get some sort of healing going on. When you get letters in the mail like this and lay them on the counter, and your 13-year-old grandson comes up and picks up the mail and goes through it because he thinks it might be a Christmas card or something and reads that, there is no sense in it. There's not a person on here that's family should be subjected to that. We have a pretty good idea who it is. We got narrowed down to about 2 or 3 people. I'm not angry at them. I'm sick for them. I brought it up in pre-council, and Mr. Hurley suggested that I pull it off the agenda, that we don't do it. I think that the politics in Haltom City, I've discussed it a little bit with my little buddy Trey here, and I haven't been around as long as Trey has. Trey told me it was like this 10 years ago, and there's people that's told Trey it's been like this 20 years ago, and he said that there's no fixing it. It's just going to continue to be that way. And as long as we sit and let it be that way, it's going to stay that way. But the letters have got to quit. The emails have got to quit. The side shots, the people writing the letters, the people walking around saying, that we're an embarrassment to Fort Worth. These letters to the editor and the way we conduct ourselves make us an embarrassment to Fort Worth, not what this city is doing. This city is doing the most progress right now than it is done. I moved here in '54, and there's more going on right now than there's ever done in the city of Haltom City. We got more things going positive, but we've got more bad publicity for the positive stuff we got. I'm going to request that we don't have the meeting. Mr. Muir, I thought it would be a good idea to try to get out and heal some of the deal. Mr. Mayor, I would like to have an apology from you because I wasn't going to use the 4-letter words out here. In the pre-council room, I knew who was in there, and I wanted, there's another letter. There's 3. I get one every 6 weeks. And they're so stupid that they don't send them on typewriter. They handwrite them out. They don't understand there's DNA. I just want whoever's writing these letters to sit down and think about it before they write it. If they're married, go in and look at your own wife and see if you don't want somebody to subject your wife to that. I don't need the job. I don't need it. It's worthless. And sit up here and have to do this is not worth it.
Councilmember Williams, did I understand you were asking for an apology from me? Thank you. What are you asking the council to do regarding the town hall meeting? Are you ready to make a motion?
At this time, I think I'm going to take Councilmember Hurley's advice, and he said he didn't think it would do any good at this time or at any time, so I'd just like to withdraw it.
All right. We move then to item number 16, and this has to do with the petition. And I believe I'll ask our visiting attorney tonight, and I say visiting, he's been here a few times before. This is Wade Adkins. Our usual attorney, Mr. Olson, is not here tonight. He had a conflict needing to be with another city he represents, so we're in very good hands. And Mr. Adkins, what would you like to say to the council and to the audience regarding item number 16?
Item number 16 is the petition that has been presented to the City Council by the City Secretary after checking the names on the petition. She has determined that there are sufficient signatures on the petition to seek the recall of council members Tracy Henderson, John Williams, Trey Fowler, Bob Hurley, and David Averett. So under the city charter, the responsibility of the city council regarding this petition is to acknowledge that you have received the petition. I previously advised the city council that under case law regarding conflict of interest, that the courts have held that on a recall petition that the city council members, even though they may be the subject of the recall petition, are not disqualified from voting and are required to vote to call the recall election, because that is just a ministerial act and it's required under the city charter. But on item 16, I would recommend that the council adopt a motion acknowledging receipt of the petition. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the council for Mr. Adkins? Okay, there being none, Madam City Secretary, do we have a conflict of interest form filled out on this item?
Councilmember Fowler has filed that on agenda item number 17, not 16.
17 or 16?
It is 17. He will be, actually it will be on both of them, actually 16 and 17.
Mr. Mayor, could we ask the attorney to relate the circumstances that would result in a successful recall?
Yes, the item number 17 is a resolution by which the city council would call an election to be held on February 7th, 2004. And at that election, there would be, for each of the council members who were the subject of the recall petition, there would be a proposition for the voters to vote yes or no as to whether or not that council member should be recalled. If the council member is recalled, then the position would be become vacant and would remain vacant until the next city council election. If the council member is not recalled, then he would serve out whatever his normal term is.
If this were successful on 5 council members, how many council members would we have left to run the city?
You would have 2 council members and the mayor.
They would constitute a quorum.
And yes, it's our opinion that the number required to constitute a quorum would be reduced by the number of any vacancies that you have because of removal of council members.
But the five council members would vacate their seats immediately?
If removed by the voters, they would, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for the attorney?
One additional item I might add, the charter does provide that council members who are the subject of a recall petition do have the option of resigning their position rather than having the recall item put on the ballot. If they did that, what the council would be asked to do is to submit that particular position that the council member holds who resigned to the voters as a vacant position, and somebody could file for that position and to serve out the unexpired term of the council member who resigned. So any of the council members that desire to resign would sign a letter and tender that to the city council at this time.
Is that something we need to address at this time, Mr.
Yeah,
Atkins?
I would suggest that before adopting the resolution calling the election, which is item number 17, that you ask whether any of the council members that are the subject of the recall petition desire to submit a letter of resignation to the council. And the city secretary has a form letter that could be signed by anybody who desires to resign at that time.
Okay, if I understand correctly, then the question that the city secretary will ask should come after we take action on item number 16 at the conclusion of that.
That's correct.
Okay, so on item number 16, what we're being asked to do is to acknowledge receipt of the petition, and that's the substance.
That's correct.
Okay, before we do that, Councilmember Fowler had his light on, Councilmember Williams, Councilmember Avery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a question for Mr. Atkins real quick. As we'd spoken in pre-council, and which I don't typically do, but a lot of supporters of mine have asked me to come forth and ask some questions about some of these allegations. And if anyone, whether they're for me or against me, if they'd like to read any of this stuff, I'll make some copies for them. But we had one that was specifically I asked you about. It said subsection D, this is one of the reasons for recall. At a city council meeting on September 22nd, 2003, Trey Fowler voted for resolution to direct the city to eliminate and remove specific job positions of city employees from employment in possible violation of Article 311 of the city charter. Trey Fowler took part in direct removal of employees in the administrative service of the city in possible violation of the charter. The vote on this resolution was taken at a meeting when it was known the city manager was not present. The action was in violation of the city council manager form of city government required by the city charter. Further removal of specific city positions was not posted as agenda item for that meeting in possible violation of the open meeting laws and civil service rules. Could I ask Mr. Atkins, we had discussed this previously, this is all within the realm of a council member to make decisions on positions that deal with the budget, and the reason for this was we were in a situation where we were trying to, we were forced earlier in the year to consider 27 positions, actually 35 originally, and in an effort to try to save the taxpayers' money and provide the highest amount of service. Is that not our duty as council members, and do we not reserve the right under 3.11 of the charter?
You certainly, under the city charter, have the responsibility for approving the budget and for approving the salaries of all positions that are in the budget, and the city council does, under the city charter, have authority regarding abolishing positions for budgetary reasons if you choose to do that, and that does not violate the city charter. The section of the charter that is referred to relates to council members going directly to subordinates of the city manager and trying to give them orders or direct that people that are subordinates of the city manager be fired without going through the city council. So there is no violation of the charter in the city council approving a budget that reduces the number of positions.
Okay, so in other words, these people have been lied to in this, or misled, at the least misled in some of the accusations that are found in these. You know, I'd sent a conflict of interest, I guess, or a piece of paper, but I feel like it'd probably be better now to just go ahead and vote on it to make sure that we are legal to vote on this. Is this correct?
Yes, sir. I have instructed you that I have done research and determined that the courts really say that you are required by the city charter to vote on this item, even if you are one of the council members.
So
who
we are
would be
required
recalled.
to vote on it. So,
Yeah.
Brenda, I want to
Yes, sir.
withdraw that conflict of interest. And, you know, as I said, I don't typically debate and take and participate in this type of stuff. I feel like it's best to try to stay above it. But, you know, all I would ask people to do is, if you have a question of myself or any of the council members, I don't care if it's place 1 through 7, pick up the phone or take the time to go down and call them and ask them. Don't believe all the trash people put out. Half this stuff, at best, is a stretch at best. You know, we have a job to sit up here, and as Councilmember Williams stated, you know, we're called everything in the world. And most of these guys, and I can say it 1 through 7, including the mayor, would probably do anything in the world to help anybody in the community. I don't agree with Mr. Sutton, Ms. Branson, the mayor, sometimes Councilmember Hurley or Councilmember Williams. I don't necessarily agree with them all the time. Sometimes I think they're all out in left field. And I'm sure I'm in left field also. But all I can ask the people of our city to do, if somebody comes up to you with something and they're not willing to put their name on it, if they're so spineless that they can't sign their name to the bottom of a piece of paper, I hope that we're all smart enough to take that piece of paper and give it credit, very little credibility. Because all that tells you is somebody's, stretching the truth or misleading you to try to get personal gain. They talk about personal gain, but that's personal gain. So I hope that we're all will take the time to read some of these things. And if you have a question, pick up the phone and call me. My office is 6217 Midway. I'm there a lot of time during the day. And I ask anyone, they're more than welcome to come down and discuss any issue they'd like to with me. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Williams?
I got 2 questions. One, I guess when she gets ready to read off the questions about if we want to resign or not, I'd like to have the mayor to read into the record the petition against each individual council member at that time. And number 2, Ms. Staub, do you have my original petition?
The original petitions are locked up in my office.
Okay.
Each council member that was on the recall did receive a copy of the originals.
Okay, just take mine for instance. The signatures on it, 640 something, ended up with 624. Why did you strike some names from that petition?
Some of the names that were on there were, we could not locate them in the voter registration list. Some of them, one in fact, was ineligible to vote. That's what it said on the registered list. There was some that 2 individuals signed on one line. Mr. and Mrs. cannot sign on one line. That was stricken out. Some were not dated. It is clearly in our charter that, and it is one of the charter's provision, that when you sign this petition, you are to date it. Some of them did not date the date of the signatures. So there was different areas on all of them that we took line by line, person by person, and looked at them.
At the bottom of each one of those petitions, there was a statement, I, John Doe, or whoever it was that was doing the deal, oversaw the people that signed. I think there were like 10 positions on each petition. If the people were overseeing that, do you know why the Mr. and Mrs. was allowed? And they're supposed to be, aren't they supposed to be witnessing the people signing them?
No, sir. What the notarization is for the person who actually carried that particular piece of petition. Their name is signed on there that they did witness those individuals signing that petition, and then that is then notarized in front of a notary.
Okay, so if a person witnessed, let's take the Mr. and Mrs. for instance, seems that they would catch that if they were actually witnessing that petition at that time. I went through my petition. Each council member was provided a copy of the petition on that particular council member, not each council member. I think probably each member up here probably keeps a pretty good file. I've got nearly every early voter's registration, or the voters list in Haltom City since I've been running in politics. A lot of these people on this petition weren't previous voters, a lot were. I've noticed some on these that appear to be forgeries. If those documents have been forged, I guess it'd be the question for the attorney, what is the reprimand for a forgery on a petition.
Well, I'm sure it would be a penal code violation. I don't know exactly what the penalty would be, but it would be a criminal violation and would be subject to a fine or imprisonment.
Okay. And I guess I'll reserve the right when we come back to the petitions. On my particular petition, I have a list of the people that collected the names. I'd like to read those into the record as well.
Okay, our purpose for item number 16 is to give consideration and take appropriate action regarding the receipt of the petition to recall and remove. I believe that's the matter of business before us. I'm ready at this time to receive a motion regarding item number 16. Councilmember Sutton, you had your light on first, and then Councilmember Averett.
Thank you, Mayor. I also wanted to make a few comments, if I may, please.
Was yours for a motion? Or
Yes, it's for a motion, but I'd like to make a few
if
comments first.
If you'll make a comment, yes, and then a motion.
I'm glad that each of us get a chance to live in a country where we have the right to discuss differences in the way that we think, the way that we decide to live under the laws. If you remember, that was one of the reasons why we became a country, is because we weren't able to live under the laws that we felt were appropriate. A lot of this dispute has to do with a difference of opinion of that it was wrong to fire the city manager, that it was divisive for the city, that there are things that are being done by this council that are divisive for the city. A lot of the people that signed those petitions don't have a voice up here in council. I've talked with some of them, and they would want me to say something like this, that there is a difference of opinion on what these actions were and the effect upon Haltom City. This was their recourse. This was the opportunity and chance to exercise what our American forefathers gave us, a right to discuss our differences and resolve them at the ballot box. This is not a personal thing. This is a matter of resolving a difference of opinion. And it will be resolved at the ballot box. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful to live in a country where we can do that. I think it's time to go ahead and put this to the ballot box, to allow people to have a say in this. And the question I'd have for my fellow council members is there not a single reason or a single idea that the petitioners that signed these have a valid idea that these council members should be recalled? Let me rephrase that. Is there not a valid reason for these council members to be recalled by this petition? In the minds and opinions of these petitioners, there is. I suspect in the minds of my council members, there is not. But that's what we have the ballot box for, and that's why we live in this country called America, where we can resolve these differences in this way, in a peaceful way. So my motion is going to be...
Just, Councilmember Sutton, just a moment. The city secretary reminded me she has a piece of housekeeping she needs to read into the record before we take a motion on this.
Yes, Mayor, for the record, I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that based upon the city charter, the number of required signatures was 565. And I wanted to read into record that I did receive on November 20th 5 petitions at 8:30 a.m. from Mr. Jack Lewis, Ms. Kim Reese, and Mr. Bill Louthan. And that the following were the verified signatures. For Councilmember Tracy Henderson, there was 622. For Councilmember John Williams, there was 624. For Councilmember Trey Fowler, 638. For Mayor Pro Tem Bob Hurley, there was 621. For Councilmember David Averett, there was 636 verified signatures. I also want to make a comment and an appreciation to the petition people that did that, the petition, because there was a lot of signatures that if they hadn't have gone back and put their voter registration numbers on, it would have been very, very difficult to verify those individuals. I do appreciate that. I also want to make a comment to the mayor for bringing in information to assist my job and to the verifying process. And at this time, you do have these numbers in record, and
We're ready to proceed. Councilmember Sutton had his light on first, and then Councilmember Averett, Williams, and Hurley, in that order.
Okay. The motion is to accept and acknowledge receipt of the petitions to recall and remove from office City Council members Tracy Henderson, Place 2, John Williams, Place 3, Trey Fowler, Place 4, David Averett, Place 5, and Mayor Pro Tem Bob Hurley, Place 6.
Okay, now remember, all we're doing is simply taking action to receive the petition, and that's the motion at this point. Councilmember Averett?
Yes, sir. Mayor, my light was actually on before Councilmember Sutton's, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, I apologize for that.
I will second his motion.
Okay.
I was actually going to make the initial
Okay.
motion, but I will second.
I apologize if I failed to pick that up. I try real hard to take lights in the order I see them. So
I do have one quick question.
Yes.
For our city secretary, she said that you provided some assistance, Mayor, for her in the, I guess, authentication or the signatures, the authentication.
Good question. I'll let the city secretary answer that question.
yes, because of recent legislative, laws and with the information that is available in the Texas Election Code, along with the other information that is also valid for recall petitions in our city charter. Several things had changed in the recent legislative deal, and the mayor had brought in information, to make sure that these were done correctly.
Now, was this requested by you, or was
Oh,
this?
no. Oh, no, this was something that the mayor brought in to my office so that we could make sure that this process went very smoothly and accurately.
Okay, and the mayor also participated in the initiation of this recall process as well, from what I understand, but we'll get to that in a minute.
We'll discuss that under item number 19A. I do want to be sure we have clarity, and I appreciate you bringing up that question. I had got some information off the web, and this occurred before that petition was ever submitted. And I happened to be in the city secretary's office, and I was saying, hey, I ran across this. I wasn't aware that we had some changes. She said, can I see it? She looked at it, said, can I make a copy? And I said, sure. So that's the degree, and that's the extent of my participation in that process, and that was way before that ever came along. Councilmember Williams, I believe you had your light on next.
Well, I was going to make the motion to do that, so I'll just agree with. I have a question for Ms. Staub now. Do you have a computer in your office?
Yes, sir, I do.
Do you not keep up on this stuff?
Yes, sir, I do.
No further questions.
Councilmember Fowler and then Councilmember Hurley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was for a second, but I also had a question. Did you, Ms. Staub, you had stated there were individuals that brought those in. Do you mind restating that? You said there was, is this like the organizers, or was this the people?
I'm not sure. I had Mr. Jack Lewis, Miss Kim Reese, and Mr. Bill Louthan come into the city secretary's office to deliver those petitions
Oh, they
to me.
presented the petitions for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That is correct.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Councilmember Hurley.
Mayor, I've got a question. Did you keep track of, I understand there was a record kept of the cost of this from the time this recall election started?
Are you asking
The
me?
petition? City Secretary.
Oh, sorry.
Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Hurley,
Do we have a figure as
we
what this cost us?
we
up to
do
date?
have an estimated figure based upon the time of the staff that I appointed and oversaw. We do have documentation for which we can provide to you
Could
and the
make that
media.
available to us?
Mr. Hurley, I've got that documentation here. I guess I can go ahead and pass these out. What this is the individuals who helped, who assisted the city secretary's office in verifying these petitions. We kept a daily track of the hours that they spent working this out, and then we've just calculated their time
Yeah.
and their efforts in doing that.
Do you have a total figure on it, what the cost is up to date?
It's about $2,500.
2,500?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want this spreadsheet or no?
I just wanted the total cost.
Anything further regarding the motion on the floor to approve receipt of the petition? Okay, there being none, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll register your vote, I'll display it at this time. Okay. Do you need to read that?
It was unanimous.
Okay, we're ready now to move to the next item, and the transition between items 16 and 17. Our city secretary, I think, has a duty at this point, and Ms. Staub, the floor is yours.
Oh, okay, council members, as you saw, the petition has been verified and accepted, and at this time, it is one of my duties to ask each council member if you wish to resign at this time. I will tell you that I spoke with council member Henderson this afternoon when he called in ill, and he did express his desire to let everyone know that he did not want to resign at this time. So I will ask council member Williams if he would like to resign at this time.
I'd like for the mayor to read my recall petition into the record, and I'll answer.
You want the mayor to?
Yes, ma'am, that would be excellent.
You're asking me to read the petition, Councilmember Williams?
Yes, sir, where the people in the audience and out in TV land will know what's going on.
Okay. What we need to do, and I'll be glad to read that. Are you asking me to read that before you answer yes or no on
Oh,
that?
yes, definitely.
Okay. I can do that. Petition to recall Councilmember John Williams, and I'm reading this not because I volunteered to, but because I've been asked to by a colleague, and I'll read it into the record at this time. The State of Texas, County of Tarrant, to the City Council of the City of Haltom City. The below signed qualified voters of the City of Haltom City pursuant to Article 6 of the Charter of the City of Haltom City, Texas, submit this petition to recall and remove from office City Council Member John Williams, Place 3, and would state as follows. Number one, the below signed qualified voters seek the recall and removal of John Williams, City Council Member, Place 3, demanding that the question for the recall and removal of John Williams as a City Council member be held in accordance with the provisions of Article 6 of the Charter of the City of Haltom City. Number two, the minimum number of qualified voters have signed this petition or a copy thereof in the form required by the City Charter and by state law. Number three is provided by Section 6.04 of Article 6 of the City Charter. This petition consists of one or more copies of which are being presented at the same time and are intended to be considered as one petition. Number four, the ground or ground for the recall and removal of John Williams, City Council Member, Place 3, are as follows. Item A, John Williams has lost the faith and confidence of the citizens of Haltom City, and as such cannot faithfully fulfill the public trust given to him as a City Council Member. The following additional grounds are a few of the actions by which the public trust has been violated. Item B, at a City Council meeting October 13th, 2003, John Williams voted to terminate the City Manager, Richard Torres, after Mr. Torres refused to comply with Councilmember Trey Fowler's demands and direct requests relating to a major contract he had with the city. The item on the agenda was to discuss, among other things, the discipline or dismissal of the City Manager. By voting to fire the City Manager, John Williams placed the interest of Councilmember Trey Fowler ahead of the interest of the city. Item C, At a city council meeting on September 22nd, 2003, John Williams voted for a resolution to direct the city to eliminate and remove specific job positions and city employees from employment in possible violation of Article 3.11 of the city charter. John Williams took part in the direct removal of employees in the administrative service of the city in possible violation of this charter. The vote on this resolution was taken at a meeting when it was known the city manager would not be present. This action was in violation of the council manager form of city government required by the city charter. Item D, John Williams has violated the public trust. John Williams, by voting to fire the city manager on October 13th, 2003, took action in direct conflict with a faithful discharge of his duties as a council member and which was for the purpose of advancing the interest of another council member. And finally, item E, John Williams' action and conduct as a city council member raised serious doubts about his ability to faithfully serve as a city council member. John Williams' action has been detrimental and prejudicial to the administration of city government and reflects discredit upon the city government and upon the reputation of the citizen of the city of Haltom City.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that very well describes me in their eyes. Before I answer the question, she's fixing to ask me a question. My petition consisted of 80 pages, of which Larry Francis turned in 33, Bill Alton turned in 23, Rachel Sutton turned in 9, Geraldine Lewis 6, Jack Lewis 3, Don Larson 3, Bay Joy Turner 2, Tom Quinellis 2, Priscilla Mercer 2, Sandra Logan 2, Margaret Holt 2, Loretta Bannister 1, Jessica Jackson 1, and Kim Reese 1. I'll answer your question here in a minute, Madam Secretary, but I am going to protest the petition signed against me because I think there's fraud and forgeries involved in it, and I will have that under investigation. Now, do you have a question for me?
Yes, Councilmember Williams, at this time, I ask if you wish to resign the position on the city council.
I've never quit anything in my life, no.
Okay.
Councilmember Fowler, I ask you the same question. You have the opportunity of giving your resignation on the position on the city council.
No, to be honest with you, no, I don't care to resign. There's been nothing done wrong. But if you don't mind, if we're going to read the accusations, I'd like to ask the mayor to read those into the record also, if he would, please. Where's the paper? Right? That was my paper.
Oh, John's. I'm sorry, here's the paper train. This is John's. Yours?
That's all this
You want me to read
No,
it?
if you don't mind, just so you can read it in the record. But Miss Staub, though, real quick, you're saying this was the part with the signatures that was turned in by Mr. Lewis, Miss Reese, and Mr. Louthan?
That is correct, sir.
Okay.
It is required that each page of the signatures have that on it. That way the petition signers were to have read that and then sign that petition.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure I understand the value of doing this, but Councilmember Fowler, I'll be glad. Okay. Okay. Petition to recall Councilmember Trey Fowler, State of Texas, County of Tarrant, to the City Council of the City of Haltom City. The below signed qualified voters of the City of Haltom City, pursuant to Section 6 of the Charter of the City of Haltom City, Texas, submit this petition to recall and remove from office City Council Member Trey Fowler, Place 4, and would state as follows. Number 1, the below signed qualified voters seek to recall and remove the removal of Trey Fowler, City Council Member, Place 4, demanding that the question for the recall and removal of Trey Fowler as a City Council Member be held in accordance with the provision of Article 6 of the Charter of the City of Haltom City. Number 2, the minimum number of qualified voters have signed this petition or a copy thereof in the form required by the City Charter and by state law. Number 3, as provided in Section 6.04 of Article 6 of the City Charter, this petition consists of one or more copies of all of which are being presented at the same time and are intended to be considered as one petition. Number 4, the ground or ground, and I'm reading just what it says, the ground or ground for the recall and removal of Trey Fowler, City Council Member Place 4, are as follows, and there are 6. Item A, Trey Fowler has lost the faith and confidence of the citizens of Haltom City, and as such cannot faithfully fulfill the public trust extended to him by as a City Council member. The following additional grounds are a few of the actions by which the public trust has been violated. Item B, at a City Council meeting October 13, 2003, Trey Fowler voted to terminate the City Manager, Richard Torres, after Mr. Torres refused to comply with Mr. Fowler's demands and direct requests relating to a major contract he had with the city. Trey Fowler personally placed the item on the agenda to discuss, among other things, the discipline and dismissal of the City Manager. Trey Fowler did not abstain from the discussion or vote. Item C, Trey Fowler stated to Richard Torres that he would get the 5 votes required by the City Charter to fire the City Manager in possible violation of the Open Meetings Law and of the City Charter. Item D, at a City Council meeting on October 22, 2003, Trey Fowler voted for a resolution to direct the city to eliminate and remove specific job positions and city employees from employment in possible violation of Article 3.11 of the City Charter. Trey Fowler took part in the direct removal of employees in the administrative service of the city in possible violation of the Charter. The vote on this resolution was taken at a meeting when it was known the city manager would not be present. This action was in violation of the council manager form of government required by the city charter. Further removal of specific city positions was not a posted agenda item for that meeting and a possible violation of the open meetings laws and civil service rules. Item E, Trey Fowler has violated the public trust by using his position for personal gain. Trey Fowler, by voting to fire the city manager on October 13, 2003, took action in direct conflict with the faithful discharge of his duties as a council member and for the purpose of advancing his personal interest. And finally, item F, Trey Fowler's actions and conduct as a city council member raises doubt about his ability to faithfully serve as a city council member. Trey Fowler's action has been detrimental and prejudicial to the administration of city government and reflects discredit upon the city government and upon the reputation of the city of Haltom City.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One quick question, and I've said I'm not going to get in here and debate and refute all this stuff because it's, to me, there's a lot of things in this city that are a lot more important than wasting time on things like this. I do have one question, though. It's been brought up so many times about Legend Point. Mr. Muir, I received a letter from your office, is that not correct, that stated that the city had taken the escrow funds, the $25,000 that I had put up myself personally, and there was supposed to have been a letter sent to me. When was that letter stated that that project was accepted, that was in my office, that you dropped by my office?
Boy,
it was on or about June the 5th or June the 2nd of 2002 that the city had actually accepted the project?
Trey, I don't remember exactly the date that is referenced in there. But a letter was delivered to your office several weeks ago stating that in our estimation, the vegetation had not been established as per terms of the contract, and we were keeping the escrow money again as per terms of the contract, and that the contract, in our opinion, was terminated on June 30th of 2002.
So it was completed, or it was terminated. The contract was terminated June 30th of 2002. And it was a little over a year before I received that letter?
Yeah.
Okay. And at any point, did I ask for any of the escrow money to be returned to me? Or has there been any contact in regards to that since that letter's been provided to my office?
No, sir.
Okay. So I just want everyone to know that a lot of the stuff in this is I'm not even going to say it's misleading. It's out and out bold-faced lies. This is about politics, people. It's not about who can serve this community and who cares about this community. It's all about getting ahead of somebody else, you know? And if that's the way that we want to govern, if we want to every 6 months have a recall election because we don't like something somebody does, a decision that somebody makes, and we don't have the spine or the backbone to come up there. It's been said that Mr. Sutton stated that that individuals don't feel like they have access to government, I've always made myself, and I think I made myself prior to him even making that comment, that anybody can come up here and talk to me at any time. And I've always, I don't think anyone can refute the fact that I've always had an open ear to anyone. I don't care if it's my closest of allies or my bitterest of enemies. I've always listened to any and everyone that's come before me or asked me to consider an issue or look at an issue. And I will continue to do that, whether they're my bitterest of enemies or closest of allies. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And no, I choose not to resign.
Okay, Councilmember Sutton's light is on, but we need to finish the process she's involved in.
Councilmember Averett, I ask you at this time if you'd like to resign from your position on the City Council.
Well, Ms. Secretary, because since we've been reading everyone's petition in the record, I would like to have mine read into the record.
Ladies and gentlemen, he has the right to do that. We've set a precedent.
I want the whole
Ladies
thing
and
read into the
gentlemen,
record.
we need to maintain order here in the council meeting. Councilmember Averett has the right to have this read, and I'll be more than glad to do so. Petition to recall City Council Member David Averett Jr., State of Texas, County of Tarrant, to the City Council of the City of Haltom City, the below signed qualified voters of the City of Haltom City pursuant to Article 6 of the Charter of the City of Haltom City, Texas, submit this petition to recall and remove from office City Council Member David Averett Jr., Place 5, and would state as follows. Item 1. The below signed qualified voters seek to recall the recall and removal of David Averett Jr., City Council Member, Place 5, demanding that the questions for the recall and removal of David Averett Jr. as a City Council Member be held in accordance with the provisions of Article 6 of the Charter of the City of Haltom City. Number 2, the minimum number of qualified voters has signed this petition or a copy thereof in the form required by the city charter and by state law. Number 3, is a provision of Section 6.04 of Article 6 of the city charter. This petition consists of one or more copies of all of which are being presented at this time, at the same time, and are intended to be considered as one petition. Item number 4, the ground for the recall and removal of David Averett Jr., City Council Member, Place 5, are as follows. A, David Averett Jr. has lost the faith and confidence of the citizens of Haltom City, and as such cannot faithfully fulfill the public trust extended to him as a City Council member. The following additional grounds are a few of the actions by which the public trust has been violated. B, at a City Council meeting on October 13, 2003, David Averett Jr. read a handwritten motion to terminate the city manager and voted to terminate the city manager Richard Torres after Mr. Torres refused to comply with Councilmember Trey Fowler's demands and direct requests relating to a major contract he had with the city. It is not certain when the motion was written or by who. The item on the agenda to discuss, among other things, the discipline or dismissal of the city manager. By voting to fire the city manager, David Averett Jr. placed the interest of Councilmember Trey Fowler ahead of the interest of the city. Item C, David Averett Jr. has violated the public trust. David Averett Jr., by voting to fire the city manager on October 13, 2003, took action in direct conflict with the faithful discharge of his duties as a council member, and which was for the purpose of advancing the interest of another council member. And finally, item E, David Averett Jr.'s actions and conduct as a city council member raises serious doubt about his ability to faithfully serve as a city council member. David Averett Jr.'s action has been detrimental and prejudicial to the administration of city government and reflects discredit upon the city government and upon the reputation of the city of Haltom City.
Thank you, Mayor.
And so, Councilmember Averett, I ask you wish to resign your place on the City Council at this time?
No, Ms. Staub, I have no intention of resigning.
Mayor Pro Tem Bob Hurley, I asked you the same question. Would you like to submit your resignation on the City Council at this time?
If I thought that 600 signatures represented the majority of the people in this city that vote, I'd be more than happy to resign tonight, if that would please them. I don't believe that 600 people being misled, misguided by someone with agendas that was set out to do this, I don't believe they control our city. I think that we've got a lot of intelligent people out there that will read this issue and read into it. And I'm welcome to see them at the polls, because I'm going to be there. No, I will not resign.
Okay. Have you discharged what you needed to do at this time?
Yes, Mayor, thank you.
Okay. We move now to item number 17, and Mr. Adkins, once again, we need your legal assistance to explain what we're doing here and what the council is called on to do at this time.
Item 17 is a resolution that would call a special election on February 7th to recall council members Tracy Henderson, John Williams, Trey Fowler, David Averett, and Mayor Pro Tem Bob Hurley. And that's the item before the council. As I stated previously, the council members who are the subject of the recall petition are not disqualified from voting on this and are required to vote under the city charter.
Okay. Councilmember Sutton, now Councilmember Averett had his light on first, but you had yours left over from a while ago. Do you have something left over from a while ago that I failed to acknowledge before we transitioned on to this item?
Yes, I did, Mayor. Thank you. And
then we'll go to Councilmember Averett.
Sure. Just in response to, I felt like it was necessary to respond to Councilman Fowler. I never said, or do I remember saying, government was not accessible, but I have heard that from other citizens that have said the same thing about this council before. The question about Legend Point and whether there were improprieties there, I think it's a little bit strange that the person that made the accusations was fired from our city government. That is the person that raised the issues of the improprieties in Legend Point. Because of that, it seems strange that here we are at a situation where a council member is calling those that signed the petitions and led the petition drive that they're liars, because really what that's saying is that Richard Torres was a liar. I like to say that that's what this recall petition is all about. It's a test of character. Who's telling the truth? Who's telling the truth about what these improprieties have been and the accusations that are in the petitions? And that's why we're taking this to the ballot, because somebody is not telling the truth, and we need to find that out. And I believe that the ones that signed that petition have an opinion that is contrary to my 5 fellow councilmen. They believe that those 5 are not telling the truth when it comes to these things that we're dealing with in the petitions. That's what the petition's all about. And to say that one side is lying and the other side is not is missing the whole point. That's what the voters are going to decide come February.
Councilmember Averett?
Yes, are we in line for a motion?
Yes.
Okay, Mayor, I'll make a motion we approve resolution number R-2003-069-01.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Councilmember Williams, your light was on next.
I'm going to second his motion, but I appreciate Jim bringing that to our attention there. And I don't think the people out there actually lied. I think they were just misinformed about some things. And actually, the reason I'm being recalled, from what I can tell, is because our fire station is so nice. So I'll second the motion in lieu of the fire station.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Councilmember Fowler?
Yeah, I was going to second that motion, but in quick response, Mr. Sutton, I believe almost a year to the date we had an election in regards to this on Legend Point, and I believe that the citizens spoke at that time. That's why I say I would assume that 2 recall elections, which recalls are very unheard of, 2 in the same year, I would think that we might tend to look at some of the implications behind it, and you know, we're going to make statements about Legend Point and that. We've already had a recall on that. And I'm still sitting here.
Okay, now, Gentlemen, we're not going to get in a debate on a subject that is, we already are, but we're not going to go any further with this. I'm ready to call for a vote on the motion and the second that's before us to approve resolution connected with item number 17.
And that vote was unanimous.
Okay. Before we proceed, ladies and gentlemen, I know some of you a moment ago reached the point of being frustrated with the tedium of the process that was underway. And I apologize for that. I think, however, due to the nature of the volatility and the deep feelings that a recall has a way of generating, that it was appropriate for us to take the time to allow to allow these council members to express what they had to say. And so I'm not usually that patient with the conducting of the meeting, but I think tonight it was well worth our while to be involved as we were up to this point. Okay, we have therefore, based on the vote just taken, a recall election set for Ms. Staub.
That is set for February 7th, and information will be going out when the early voting will be starting. Early voting will be here at City Hall, Election Day. We'll have 2 voting poll places. We'll have here at City Hall, since wonderful Broadway is open. We have access now, and at Spicer Elementary.
Okay. We move now to item number 18, resignation of board members. Do we have any resignations tonight? There being none, appointments and reappointments. Okay, there being none, we move now to item number 19A. Item number 19A was an addendum added to the agenda on Friday or Saturday of last week. This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Haltom City reprimanding the mayor of Haltom City, Texas, Calvin White, for publicly engaging in the initiation and promotion process of recalling 5 of his fellow council members. Councilmember Averitt, I believe you placed this item on the agenda. Would you like to introduce it at this time, please?
I would, Mayor. I would like to read something into the minutes, if I may.
Certainly.
This is the following stated within our city charter. Whereas the mayor occupies the highest elective office in the municipal government of Haltom City, and whereas as political head of the city, the mayor is expected to provide the necessary leadership to carry out the legislative responsibilities and policy goals of the council. And whereas Section 3.11 of the City Charter of Haltom City states that neither the council nor any of its members shall direct or request the appointment of any person to or his removal from office by the manager or any of his subordinates, or in any manner take part in the appointment or removal of officers and employees in the administrative service of the city. And whereas an ordinance of the City of Haltom City providing for the adoption of ethics applicable to elected officials states in Section 2-45A1, it is hereby declared to be the policy of the city that the proper operation of democratic government requires that the public officials and employees be independent, impartial, and responsible only to the people of the city. Calvin White, who is our current mayor, was seen publicly engaging and encouraging residents to participate in the recall effort of 5 elected officials of this governing body. This act alone is a direct violation of our city charter, the same charter which we as elected officials are sworn to uphold. Calvin advocates teamwork and unity among his peers. Yet after having the opportunity to speak with many of those who have signed the petition, and based upon those conversations, it is my belief that he even further violated our charter by providing both inaccurate information to these individuals and making false allegations towards his colleagues. Calvin demonstrated poor judgment when, at the October 27th council meeting, he used a public forum and city cable television to imply that a recall petition should be initiated simply because he didn't agree with the council action at the previous council meeting. Calvin has not only behaved inappropriately, but he has conducted himself in a manner unbecoming of a public official, and that, in my opinion, is unacceptable. There have been numerous citizens who have said that I should demand his immediate resignation, but I will not do so at this time. Instead, I will request that this council impose the harshest punishment allowable by our city charter. Thank you.
I have a statement to make at such time as we have a motion and we have further explanation and further questions, and I do have some questions, but I'll reserve that until other members of the council have had an opportunity to address this issue, and also until we have a motion and a second on the floor. Councilmember Bransom, I believe your light was on first, and then Councilmember Sutton.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight's been a real learning opportunity, I think, for a lot of us. But I have a couple of specific questions that I'd like to ask Councilmember Averett. What he was reading was actually the resolution that was delivered to us on Saturday night, a holiday weekend, I might add. So we had city staff and police out on a holiday weekend bringing an envelope to our homes. But my specific question for Councilmember Averett is he refers to Section 3.11 of the city charter. I've read that section, I've reread it and overread it, and I'm reading it again. And that particular section appears to apply to the council giving directions to the city manager for removal of employees. It doesn't seem to apply to the council in any way other than that. So I'm hoping he can explain how that is applicable to his complaint. And then on the second, which is actually the fourth whereas on here, I can't get to where he is reading that section 2452A1. So I'm hoping that he can clarify this for me, and maybe for any other citizen out there that doesn't understand how he gets there either, because I'm just not with you. I'm not on the same page. Can you help me out?
Councilmember Branson, with all due respect, it's highly unlikely you would vote with me on this issue anyway, so I refuse. I will not comment on that.
Wow. Okay.
Further questions? Further questions, Councilmember Branson?
Can I come back if maybe somebody else can enlighten me with what this is all about? I just presume that if a council member puts a resolution before a council to vote on, that they can explain, defend, reason, debate, whatever, to help us understand where they're coming from.
Councilmember Sutton and then Councilmember Fowler.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I noticed several items of hearsay in this these allegations. One is that the mayor was seen with petition gatherers, and I don't know if any of you know the mayor. I know that many of you do, that the mayor is a very friendly person, and he'll stop and talk with people, especially when he's out there. To me, that's a hearsay allegation that he was out there gathering signatures when someone happened to see him with people that happened to be there with signatures. I thought that was very interesting that we are setting a harshest reprimand on hearsay, legal hearsay, which to me seems unfounded. The second question I have is for the attorney. I didn't hear a single allegation in there that violated our city charter. Could the city attorney enlighten me on any city charter item that might have been alleged and why it was in legal terms?
Well, I have really not tried to investigate the allegations in this resolution, but I would tend to agree with Mrs. Branson about Section 311 of the Charter being something that is a provision that is intended to keep council members from interfering with the employees who are under the jurisdiction or appointed by the city manager, and that it really would not have any bearing on the mayor. Whether or not he did this, I don't know, but it would not have any bearing on the mayor being involved in a petition to recall other members of the city council. I don't think there really is anything in the city charter or city ordinances one way or the other about reprimanding the members of the city council. Certainly the city council has authority to adopt any kind of resolution it wants to, but there's really nothing directly about that as I understand it.
Right. So there's no legal breach of our charter based upon your initial look at this.
Not that I.
And usually a reprimand would be given for political means, if there's no legal thing done. Would that not be true?
Well, certainly the city council doesn't have the authority to remove the mayor, so a reprimand would be, I guess, indicating that the city council disagrees with something that the mayor has done and does not approve of his conduct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilmember Fowler.
I'm going to defer for just a moment if there's anyone else that would like to speak. I'm trying to get all this deciphered.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Fowler, I'm a little bit distracted, as you can imagine. Would you would you repeat that?
I'm just gathering my thoughts real quick, and
Sure.
I'll comment again in a minute if that's all right.
All right. You may need to turn your light back on when you're ready to do that. Councilmember Williams.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, you wouldn't be out there doing that against me, would you? Would you be trying to get somebody to sign a petition or talk them into doing that?
I'll address this after we have a motion and a second on the floor.
I mean, just a yes or no. I mean, did you do it or did you not do it? I can't believe that you did it.
As I said, I will address all questions
Okay.
after a motion and a second on the floor, and I will answer your question at that time.
Okay, I know it's a hard question, so we'll give it a little time. This gets back to our Slam Bang Theater, what's happening now in Haltom City. Mr. Sutton, and I'm getting where I like the guy. Shook hands with him today, and we're having a little dialogue, and I think me and him are going to be drinking coffee. He comes up with a good deal that he says that this document that Councilmember Avis brought up doesn't show any breach and hearsay, and we had just discussed, I'm not going to pick my glasses up, I'm going to guess it's somewhere around 16 or 17, the petition. A lot of things in those were hearsay too, and that's a petition to ruin somebody's career, politically or professionally or whatever. And I think this deal here is kind of a slap on the hand. So, and I can't get an answer whether or not he did or didn't. I can't imagine our mayor doing that. I just don't. I think he has more love for the city than that. But Mr. Mayor, I would hope that you didn't do that. I know that the love for you and me aren't always what it should be. I think if we drank more coffee, maybe we'd be better friends. But this is part of the reason, number 15, the deal about having the town hall meeting where we could get together and discuss this stuff. You know, if you went out, I don't care if you go out and talk them into voting against me. You know, it's what did you say it was a while ago? Government way. And, you know, that's healthy. You know, like I said a while ago, the fire department. That's the recall on kind of the fire department. You know, and that's the reason I wanted you, and I apologize, you're a good reader, but that's the reason I had you read that into the record, because there wasn't anything in there about a fire department. And my personal friends that I went and talked to that signed this petition, and some that I run into the restaurants and stuff, one of them last Saturday morning went there and he says, man, I didn't want to sign that petition, but he said they just shoved it out there, and he says, I signed it to get rid of them. And I know you wouldn't shove a petition like something like that. And I'm just going to have to take up for you, Mr. Mayor, because I don't think there's any way in the world that you would go out there and do that against any person on this council. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt.
If you'll hang around till we have a motion and a second, you'll have all the answers to your questions. Further question or discussion regarding this item? Councilmember Fowler, Councilmember Branson, the lights were on in that order.
I had a question for you, Mr. Mayor. I just was under the assumption and actually saw the letter that was sent out for the petition signing party that was held at the corner of Stanley Keller and Haltom Road. Happened to drive by there and see that you were there. Did you, and you may want to defer to answer to me in a minute, I guess, as you've stated, were you at that and did you participate in that function?
That question will be answered when we have a motion and a second on the floor.
Okay. Okay. I guess we'll just hold off then.
Councilmember Branson.
Okay, I think what I'm hearing people say, maybe I'm confused, but I think I'm hearing them say that if you choose to do something that doesn't support them, then, or an incumbent, or something along those lines, then you should be reprimanded? Is that kind of what I'm hearing? I mean, it sounds that way, like you're not supposed to have an opinion if it's not towards your, the individuals that are sitting close to you. Is that, I think that's what I'm hearing. And if that's what I'm hearing, now I have a question for Mr. Averett, because I have an email that he told me I could put a sign in his yard, and obviously I wasn't the incumbent. But I have an email that says I could put a sign in his yard during the election. So, gee, shouldn't he have been reprimanded for that because he wasn't supporting the incumbent by sending an email to put a sign in the yard? Sorry, Dewey, I see you sitting back there.
Anybody can put signs in my yard. It's like the United Nations out there.
Well, so under that theory, then anyone can go to a gathering of individuals regardless of what they're gathering for. I mean, I can't get from one without going to the other. I mean, I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to understand. I'm just having a tough time getting there. I can be reasonable from time to time.
Councilmember, were you through? Councilmember Fowler.
I guess to answer your question on my behalf, Ms. Bransom, all I want to know is, you know, I've sat in that position before, and that's the highest elected position in this city, and I feel like that, from my own personal belief, that when you sit in that seat, that you refrain from anything that's divisive in the city, and that was my question. I don't have an opinion yet. I'm trying to form that right now. But I feel like that when you sit in as mayor, yes, you do refrain from anything that is detrimental to this community, period. And I have sat there, so I can't speak from experience.
And I respect that, but based off that, how would you know what was going on if you didn't show up and ask, hey guys, what's going on? You know, I wasn't there. I happened to be in Denton, so I didn't see the party. I was immersed in global business that day, but gee, I could see where anyone in the world could stop by and say, maybe it's free hamburgers. I mean, maybe they thought it was like Lowe's where you get free hamburgers on a Saturday.
Councilmember Fowler, you have the floor.
That's all I
Councilmember
have, Mr.
Sutton.
Mayor.
And then I'm going to call for a motion, and we'll proceed from there.
Well, thank you, Mayor. It seems to me that the mayor is going to be put in positions of controversy from time to time whenever there's a tie vote, for instance, on the council, and the mayor will have to take a stand on an issue, and that will clearly be divisive for one part of the city. So the mayor is going to have to take divisive stands from time to time, and I don't think that should surprise us that he does. The fact that the mayor happens to be a part of something that may be in a disagreement with that's ongoing on the council between the firing of Richard Torres, I don't think should surprise us. There is a difference of opinion on that action, and not only on this council, but in the community. And that's what we're talking about. We're bringing this to the place where we can talk about it and recognize that there is a difference of opinion on those actions and other actions that have been taken.
And I appreciate you bringing light to that, Mr. Sutton, because you just hit the nail on the head. Just because somebody votes on something, it doesn't have to be decisive. It doesn't have to be the fact that it's 4 voted this time and 3 voted on this, and I don't like them because they voted a different way. We're adults up here. This is about the betterment of ourselves and all these people. It's not about a 4-2 vote, 5-3. It's not about any of that. It's above that.
But the decisions...
Okay, you respond, and then I'm calling for the motion.
I agree.
Go ahead. Go ahead and respond.
Okay. And it is about being adults. But in being adults, there are some times when differences have to be talked about publicly, and that's what we're talking about. These are legitimate differences, and the fact that I voted with you on many times and I voted against you on many times does not change the fact that we can get up here and do something and debate something. We are debating the issue of whether Richard Torres should have been fired, partially with this recall petition. And I am taking the stand that it should not have happened, just the way I voted on the council.
I'm ready to entertain a motion regarding item number 19A, and I would assume, Mr. Adkins, that we have, the way this is posted allows the council to take action. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Hurley.
If David made a motion, I'll second it.
Okay, we've got a second, but we don't have a motion.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought that was in the form of a motion earlier. Ms. Staub, will you please read the resolution of 19A into the record?
You want the entire resolution, Councilmember?
Just the heading.
Okay. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Haltom City, Texas, reprimanding the mayor of Haltom City, Texas, Calvin S. White, for publicly engaging in the initiation and promotion process of recalling 5 of his fellow council members.
Okay, thank you. With that being read into the minutes, Mayor, I make a motion that we approve resolution number 2003-073-01.
Okay, Councilmember Hurley?
That was for a second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Councilmember Williams? Am I going to read the deal? Yes. Yeah. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor to reprimand the mayor, as has been stated previously. I knew this was going to be an issue when I received a call. Let's see, that was on the 15th, the day in question. On the 17th, on a Monday, I received a call from Stephen English of the Northeast News. And he told me that Councilmember Williams had contacted Dick Hodson and said that Councilmember Hurley had a picture of me standing out under the tent up on Stanley Keller, participating in the recall process. So that was a red flag that came up for me, and Stephen and I talked about what happened, and because it was a red flag that came up, I immediately sat down and put the events in order, so a great deal of time would not pass while I still had it all clearly in mind. So here's the statement. I want to be sure this council, my colleagues sitting here at the dais, has the facts of this issue before they vote. I want to be sure the members of the audience who is sat here tonight and endured a lot of things, including this, knows what's going on. I want to be sure the members of the press who are here, as well as those who are watching on cable TV, see this matter for what it really is. This proposed resolution has no basis in fact. It is at best someone's imagination run wild, and at its worst, it's fabrication, it's a distortion, and a misrepresentation. I agree with what Councilmember Fowler said a moment ago about the role of the mayor. I've advocated for a long time raising the bar here in Haltom City leadership, and I believe I ought to exemplify that, and I believe I ought to be held to a higher standard, and I have no problem with that. That goes with the territory of being mayor. But I can tell you what I just stated is a fact. My role in the recall process was as follows, and I want you to listen carefully. Before God and before you, before the citizens of Haltom City, what I'm about to tell you are the facts. Now, what the council chooses to do with those facts is up to them, and they will indicate something here in just a moment about what they intend to do with that. Number one, as we're talking about my role in the recall process, number one, I was an invited guest at 2 gatherings of a few people where the recall was discussed early on. Fact number 1. As mayor, I have some responsibilities that the other members of the council do not have. I have a responsibility. I need to know what's going on in the community, and I need to go where it's happening, and I need to see with my own eyes and hear with my own ears what's happening in my city. And when I say my city, you understand, I don't own this city, the citizens own it. I'm simply saying the city over which I serve as mayor. Okay, fact number 1. Fact number 2, I did not discourage the recall effort. And I make no apologies for making that statement. It is a fact. I believe citizens should have the right to recall any elected official, including me, if they feel the elected officials no longer represents their vision for the city. I don't believe you ought to just jump up and recall somebody over every little thing. I think you need to have reason, but I embrace the concept that citizens should have the right to recall and should not be badgered if they choose to exercise that option within the framework of the rules that are in place. Citizen frustration and outrage over the actions of the council had been growing for some time in this community, and it had finally reached an intensity and a scope about 7 weeks ago that my trying to stop it as the mayor would have been like the governor of California being expected to stand before the recent wildfires out there and try to reason with the fire and tell it to quit burning. I did not start this fire that ignited the recall process, and I could not stop it. And anyone who feels that that's an understatement needs to spend some time with the citizens, and I've spent a lot of time, believe me, over the last 2 months with our citizens. The wildfire is burning, and they are extremely frustrated. And I didn't start the fire, and I don't have within myself the ability to stop it. Fact number 3. While I did not discourage the recall effort, I maintained a low profile during the recall effort, as I should. As Councilmember Fowler indicated a moment ago, the mayor has a responsibility. Recall petitions, I believe, ought to be citizen-driven and not mayor-driven. And this one was. It was citizen-driven and not mayor-driven. If you're looking for a scapegoat tonight, if anyone is regarding this, the mayor's not the problem in regard to the recall petition and how it came about and how it was delivered. I did not carry the petitions. I did not make phone calls. I did not send out letters. I did not go door to door, but I did talk to a lot of people who called me, who I met in the grocery store, who I met at the restaurant when my wife and I would try to get away, get out of the city, would run ultimately into somebody that needed to talk about this. And as I spent time talking with a lot of people, and I told you at one time what the number was, and it was right at 100, and that was within the first week or 10 days of after the termination of Mr. Torres. And as I talked with these people, and I did this without me bringing up the subject, just going about the natural course of my functions here in Haltom City, I heard the message loud and clear again and again and again. Enough is enough. We've had enough. We've been embarrassed too many times by this council. If they don't do something ridiculous, they do something embarrassing. And we're tired every time we look at the newspaper or listen to the news to hear, we need a change. That's what I was hearing. It's an interesting thing that I'm catching fire tonight from my opponents, and that's okay. I expect that. An interesting feature about this recall process is that my friends and supporters criticized me pretty seriously for not taking an active role. So that's the position the mayor finds himself in. On the one hand, he has his opponents who have brought forth this reprimand saying you were too much involved, and you have your friends saying you're not enough involved. I will tell you this, if I had been involved, I've gone over these lists, I've looked at them, I have a database, I know my base of supporters, and if I'd got out and worked, we would have had another 200 to 300 signatures. I'm convinced, but I didn't do that. I tried to take the high road and allow this to be citizen-driven rather than mayor-driven. Point number 4. The point of focus in this proposed reprimand was my presence at the tent at the Clown Burger on November 15th. And I want you to listen real closely because here are the facts. Number 1, I was there. I was there. And I make no apology for that. Number 2, I was there a total of 5 minutes. My wife and I had got up earlier that day and gone by the donut shop, got a donut, and headed on down to Richland Plaza to the Four City Flea Market and Recycling event. Was there, and we spent about an hour, and I met some of the people in the audience there, and we had some good conversation. I was dressed in my grubbies because I had a house to paint that day. And for every minute that was clicking on the clock, daylight was running out on short fall and winter days. I didn't have time to spend any time up there. My wife was with me. She sat in the pickup for that 5-minute time period, all the while hoping I would hurry up and get on to the house and get that house painted that I had been promising her that I would get done for a long time. While I was at the Clown Burger and at the tent that was there, during that 5 minutes, I spoke with Bill Louthan for a couple of minutes. How are you doing? How's the recall going? What are people saying? That's what I was wanting to know, and he told me. Mr. Jack Lewis was there, and Mr. Larry Francis was there, and they were helping people sign the recall. They were helping to accommodate. I greeted Mr. Lewis, probably spoke to him 10 seconds, and to Mr. Francis about the same amount of time. While I was talking with Mr. Louthan, a lady was sitting there writing her signature on the petitions. Had her back turned to me, and when she was through, she stood up and turned around and said, Mr. Mayor, I am Mrs. Mayor, a lady named M-A-Y-E-R. I'd never met her before. We talked maybe 30 seconds. About that time, Councilmember Sutton pulled up into the driveway, and I went over and spoke with him, and we talked for about 2 minutes. I had a house to paint. I had to get on to the house and take care of that. At no time did I touch a petition. At no time did I discuss with any citizen that came by that was there anything about the petition. I was not soliciting anyone. I wasn't trying to get anybody to do anything. I was trying to collect information. And I think as mayor, I have a responsibility to do that. I have a responsibility to sit at this microphone at the center chair here in the council chamber and make this meeting happen with poise and professionalism. And I knew there were several things involved, and I was, especially the last week or so of the petition, I was trying to stay on top of what was going on. I knew there'd been some changes in the law about petitions that had come into place on September 1st. I knew there would be a short timeline to call the election if it was going to happen in May. I knew it would be a massive undertaking for the city secretary to go over the petitions with 3,500 signatures or however many there were to make sure every I was dotted and every T was crossed. And I knew that in this community, with its interfractional conflicts and strife and wars that go on, that this would be a volatile issue. I was trying to do my homework. I needed as much lead time as I could to prepare for conducting meetings such as this when this item would come up, because I knew it would not be an easy process. So those are the four facts. Those are the four facts. Anybody that says I was publicly at Bill Louthen's Clown Burger place soliciting, encouraging, talking to people, trying to get them signed, wave down cars or anything like that, anybody that says I was, and I'll be as plain as Councilmember Fowler was a moment ago, they are a liar. They are a liar. It did not happen. Now, on to my second point. The first point, and this is, I'm not going to go on forever, I promise. This proposed resolution, I said a moment ago, has no basis in fact. Now I'm here to tell you that there is no basis for the allegation of a charter violation. And that's the whole basis Council Member Averett has brought forth for this, to really put teeth in it. And we just heard the city attorney say it doesn't even apply to this situation. It addresses elected officials directing city managers to hire and fire any person in the administrative service of the city, and says nothing whatever about elected officials being the recipient on this. So this proposed reprimand, in summary, is this. It is not based in fact. The reason given, Charter Section 3.11 and the Ethics Code, do not apply. The attorney said that a moment ago. Interesting thing, there were 2 elected officials at the Clown Burger that day. And if that was so wrong, why select only one of them to reprimand and not both of them? Even if I were doing as alleged, that is, publicly engaging in the initiation and promotion of the process of recalling 5 of his fellow council members, to use a direct quote, even if I were doing that, what is so wrong about that? Do I not have, as mayor, a First Amendment right? Am I being reprimanded if I were doing what was alleged, and I wasn't? Am I being reprimanded for exercising a First Amendment right? I thought Cuba and China and North Korea were places, and others in the world, where that happened. I cannot believe in Haltom City a mayor or council person or anyone else would be reprimanded for exercising their First Amendment right. In addition to that, how is this different? If I were doing what was alleged from what happened during the last election, I have in my hand an endorsement card, and it was not for the incumbent mayor. And it is signed by a council member who is sitting here tonight. Now, is it wrong for an elected official to decide who they will support and who they will not? Are we going after that council member? Are we going to be consistent? Because what he was advocating is we overthrow the incumbent mayor, the sitting mayor, and put another person in that spot. That's what it says. Even if I were doing as alleged, what is so wrong about that? So what we have is no basis in fact. The reasons given do not apply. We have selective enforcement because you didn't go after Councilmember Sutton, who was also drove through there at the same time I was there. And the people who are responsible for putting this together knew that and chose not to, and only to include the mayor. The selective enforcement and application. Reprimanding for exercising First Amendment right, and using city employees and city resources that you had to call in on a holiday to get them to put this together, and then to add insult on injury to the process. Take our police officers off the street and hand them this stuff, this amended thing, to spend their time delivering it, making errand boys out of police officers. Why is this being done? Doesn't make sense to me. I'll leave that for you to decide. And if the council chooses to uphold this reprimand, in view of the facts that I've laid out for you here tonight, I have another statement to make after the vote is taken. Councilmember Williams, you may have questions or comments. And
I've still got the original question. Were you sitting up there trying to encourage a recall against us?
Did you doze off?
Well, I enjoy.
Statement is no, I did not.
You did not. Well, hold the card back up there that you were waving around. Is that a Nancy Watkins card? Yeah.
That was not the incumbent mayor in the last election.
No, that wasn't. And the guy that signed it, that looks like John Williams. Looks just like my signature.
Isn't that amazing?
Was I mayor?
Were you what?
I wasn't mayor.
No, but you.
No, I wasn't mayor sitting on that deal. If I was mayor, I'd be over there and I'd be impartial. If it was Nancy, or if it was, I wouldn't care. I love the city.
See, and that's the whole thing, John. I could care less that you signed the endorsement card, because it's no big deal. You have the First Amendment right to support whoever you want to. And it makes no difference to me who you support, and that's all I ask.
Well, let's make a little clarification. The newspaper reporter called me, and I was notified by another person that there was a carnival-type atmosphere going on up around the Clownburger. I didn't go up there because I don't really care for carnivals. But another council member told me that he took a picture. And the comment that I got that Mayor White was there, I did some research, and they said that he wasn't in the picture. He was there, but he wasn't in the photo. I don't care, if you like. I'm glad you're up here. It shows you got interest in the city. But I would like to clarify the wildfire that we got blowing out there.
Okay.
Thanksgiving Day, I went up north and had lunch with my daughter Thanksgiving afternoon. There's a nice couple that live over there on McCaskill that found out that I was going to be over their house, and they made a special trip over there to come meet me. And I guess the winds of the wildfire weren't blowing so well over in that area of Haltom City, because there was two gentlemen up there going door to door trying to get a petition signed against me. So, I think this sudden urge of the wildfire, these people are all angry. I think he probably got 300 or 400 of them on the deal, and then they had to kind of fan the fire, to get it on up there. I'm proud that those 624 And I guess the winds of the wildfire weren't blowing so well over in that area of Haltom City, because there was two gentlemen up there going door to door trying to get a petition signed against me. So, I think this sudden urge of the wildfire, these people are all angry. I think he probably got 300 or 400 of them on the deal, and then they had to kind of fan the fire, to get it on up there. I'm proud that those 624 people signed that petition. And I thank God for the 19,000 people that didn't.
Okay. Are we, Councilmember Fowler, you have something
I have
before?
some questions. I'm not anyone's opponent. I'd be honest with you. I could care less. Councilmember Bransom was one of the recall carriers in the last time that I was recalled. Councilmember Sutton's wife carried recall petitions in this one against me, so that's okay. That's their prerogative. Matters not to me. I'm still trying to get to the bottom of this whole deal.
All right.
We said there was and I was there was a tent and all that there, and I know that we had an event up here that we didn't allow an individual to have a tent up at Bethesda Church. Is that correct?
I have no idea.
Is that correct, Mr. Pliska? Would this require a permit, or was this a legal event?
The Bethesda issue?
Yes, sir.
Bethesda wanted to do a Halloween carnival and
Erect a tent,
erect a tent, and they need to go through the zoning board of adjustments for a special exception.
Did we get a special exception on this event?
No,
took place?
The city was not aware of this
So this was an illegal event that took place?
Well, the fact that the event, sir, but the fact that in a commercial district, there is no such thing as a temporary structure as used as an official accessory structure. You have to go through the zoning board of adjustments to receive a special exception for a temporary structure in a commercial area.
We have a zoning board member back there. Mr. White, did we receive any, was there an event on Haltom Road and Stanley Keller that was brought before the zoning board of adjustments recently? So in other words, this was an illegal event. The board's heard nothing.
The event, no, sir, not so much the event, but anytime
The
you
structure
erect
that
a
it
tent in a commercial area.
Gentlemen and the audience, let's allow the speakers to concentrate without the hubbub of the conversation, please.
Anytime you erect a tent or a temporary structure in a commercial area, the only temporary structure that is allowed in a commercial area is for construction purposes only. Otherwise, you must seek a special exception from the Zoning Board of Adjustments for the erection of said structure.
Okay, that clarifies that then. So that wasn't taken care of. Mr. Mayor, were you, and I didn't realize, the only reason I asked you is because when I drove by there, I saw you. I didn't see Mr. Sutton, and I guess I can ask Mr. Sutton also. Were you all aware that this was not a sanctioned event that was properly taken care of?
I was not aware that it was not a sanctioned event.
Okay. Were you aware of that, Mr. Sutton?
Not aware of that at all.
But you did participate then, or you were there at the event? Because I didn't see you there.
I've been in many tents in many stores, and I didn't have the realization of whether or not they were valid or not. But I have, yes, gone to many tents in many stores without the realization of whether they were valid or not.
Okay. Okay, it's evasive, but okay. Mr. Mayor, and like I say, I'm trying to get to the bottom of this and make a decision on how I'm going to vote on this thing. Why were you even stopping by there? And I hate to get this in, but I mean, we might as well bring it out. We went through, I wished I would have had 45 minutes to discuss Legend Point, and we probably never would have had any of this problems to start with a year ago, but I was never afforded that opportunity, so.
I'll ask you the same question, and I don't mean to be getting testy, and I may be here in my old age late at night, but I just went over this just a minute ago. I explained why I was there.
You said that you were out, but I mean, is there a specific reason that you said you went to get donuts and you and your wife were out, but is there a reason, or did you specifically go by there just to see how the event was going?
I did.
Okay.
On the way home, I told my wife we're going to swing by, see how this is going, see how things are going up there.
Okay. Okay, and this was not, I was not aware of this till I received the addendum to this on the agenda, but and I apologize. I wasn't trying to point you out specifically. If Councilmember Sutton was there, I think that, I just wasn't aware that he was there. I'm not going to accuse somebody of something if I don't see them.
Sure.
But I did see your vehicle, and I thought I saw you there, and I
don't
wanted
believe
to
you
make
saw
sure.
my vehicle because it was parked around at the side behind the tent, squeezed in around a bunch of others.
Well, I drove down Haltom Road and Stanley Keller both, so I did
Okay.
see it.
All right. Well enough. Anything further?
That's it. Thank you.
Anything further before I call for the vote? Councilmember Branson?
Yeah, I just want to be sure that I understand which way yes is and which way no is before I flip the switch here.
Okay, the motion is to reprimand.
Okay.
Motion is second. Yeah. All right.
Now she's got me confused.
Easy to do.
Do you need something?
I just
John,
had a quick
for
comment.
clarity?
I just want to say that this is some of the reason why, clearly this resolution doesn't hold anything. I mean, we've talked to the attorney about it. Councilman Branson asked a direct question of Councilman Averett that he refused to answer, which is critical to whether this resolution will hold water. I've not heard anything other than politics that are involved in this, and this is the reason why we're having to have a recall petition, is because there is not that level of detachment from the issues in order to make good judgment. And this is this is another example for the voters, if this resolution goes down to reprimand him, of poor judgment on behalf of the council.
All right. Let's move now to if you will, register your vote. And remember that the motion is to reprimand the mayor. If you believe that's the appropriate action, vote yes. If you believe it should not be, vote no. Okay?
Can you read that out, please?
Yes, the vote was Councilmember Sutton and Branson voting no, the rest voting yes.
Okay, before we go on to the Visitor Citizens Forum and continue with the meeting, I said a moment ago if the council voted to reprimand, I had a statement, and it won't be near as long as the previous one. I want my fellow members on this council to know, and I want the citizens of Haltom City and all over the world to know, that I will wear this reprimand as a badge of honor. I want to be distinguished, and I want there to be absolutely no doubt that I stand in contrast to elected officials who act in the way these have tonight, who vote with no basis in fact for reasons that they gave that do not apply, who were selective in their application, who reprimand somebody if he were to have been doing what was alleged, for exercising his First Amendment right, and for daring to use city employees, requiring them to come down on a holiday to spend time, and then require our police officers to be errand boys to carry this thing out. So, yes, I wear this as a badge of honor. I want to be distinguished from Bob Hurley. I don't want anybody to believe that on this issue, and David Averett, and Trey Fowler, and John Williams, I want everybody to know that I stand out in stark contrast to these individuals. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wear this reprimand as a badge of honor in that regard. Councilmember Fowler.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Do our police officers not deliver our packets each and every? I've been involved on the council for 7 years, and I believe they've delivered every single packet that I've ever received. Is that? Am I correct in that?
No, you're not.
Oh, well.
They have never delivered mine. I refuse to allow police officers who are charged with protecting the peace in Haltom City to spend even 1 minute of their time delivering a packet. Now, they do, I think, to a number. I drive by here every day, and I do not want a sworn police officer whose job is to protect the citizens of Haltom City from crime to be wasting his time, spending his or her time delivering a packet to me when I'm perfectly able to stop by and pick mine up.
Well, I'll join in with you then, because I've been against that the whole time myself. So I think we ought to all just come pick our packets up from now on.
Mayor, in deference to the comments that have been made, the use of the police officers in delivering that packet was solely my decision and my discretion. That has been used in the past, and I chose to use that Saturday evening. So that was my decision.
Well, Mr. Mayor, do we need to put something on the agenda to make that
Yeah, I think you do. That's really not an item on the agenda for council actions.
Can we add it to the next meeting that requires council members? I agree with the mayor. I think we should all pick our packets up. In the 7 years I've been involved, I've known nothing different than that protocol, because you don't know when the packets are normally ready, and the city secretary's always just sent them out, and I've never agreed with it, but I feel like
Couldn't she
that
deliver them since she gets a car allowance now?
she could deliver them, or we could pick them up.
Oh, but I'll go with the council. If y'all want to pick them up, I'll pick mine up too. But this historically, they have done this since 1969. I can attest to it.
If that is the direction of the council, I think the staff can deal with that without there having to be formal action by the council to take affirmative, and we can take care of that. If y'all want to pick them up, we can make them available for y'all to pick up.
I do want to say something in defense of Mr. Muir, and then we have Councilmember Sutton and Councilmember Williams, and once they speak, we're going to move on to the next item. We've been here a long time. When I first came on board as mayor, we had a workshop, and during the course of that workshop, we talked about that, and there was the feeling at that time on the council that we weren't seeing enough police presence out in the communities, to follow up on what you were talking about. And the discussion was, why not have the police officers run the packets by, because that takes them into neighborhoods where they don't normally, where you don't normally see them. It gives a greater presence. At that time, I said, don't deliver mine. I'll come by and pick mine up. I think police officers have other things to do. And you may be right, and you certainly have served as a police officer, and you may know what police officers should do and shouldn't be doing. I'd much rather they be catching some speeders or whatever else out there than to take whatever length of time it takes to come up. But that's just my perspective. Councilmember Sutton, I believe Councilmember Williams had his light on first, and then
I just had a point of order. It seems that, as for the attorney, we didn't have this on our posted agenda to talk about council packets. Is it legitimate to talk about it?
That is really not listed on the agenda, and I think you ought to move on to something else.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Williams.
Well, since we can't talk about it, I won't suggest to have them mailed.
All right. All right, let's, we've had a tough night tonight, and there's a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions, a lot of things going on. Recalls have a way of doing that. They have a way of polarizing and inciting, and we've experienced that tonight. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time to be here. However, we have one more item of business before we adjourn into executive session. We have another item or two we've got to discuss back there. Councilmember Williams?
I'm ready to make the motion to excuse Tracy Henderson. We're going to move right along.
That's not on the agenda.
We're not going to excuse him?
It's not on the agenda. Can we take action on something that's not on the agenda?
We didn't put a deal on the agenda to excuse Tracy Henderson from the meeting.
We'll have to do that in retrospect next time.
We'll do it next time.
All right, let's move now to the Visitor Citizens Forum. Ms. Staub, do we have... Ladies and gentlemen, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 speaker request forms for the Visitor Citizens Forum. This time is set aside for people having business before the city that's not scheduled on the agenda to speak to the council. And I would like to ask anyone who is speaking, if what you're going to speak on is something that could wait until the 15th, can we do that? However, that's your call to make. If you believe this is something you need to address tonight, you certainly have the right to do so. I am going to put a 3-minute limit. I have the discretion from 3 to 6 minutes, and I know some of you may have something that may go longer than 3, and I have the discretion to extend, and we'll address that at that time. Mr. Elliott? Do you wish us to hold this until the next council meeting? Okay. Okay. Let's proceed forward then with the ones I do have in hand. Mr. Andis, are you here? Rick Andis. I think I saw him get up and leave a moment ago. He did leave? Okay. And I'm going to butcher this name, and it's the gentleman with Fort Worth Wrecker, John, is that Nezat? Nazat. Well, I was pretty close. Would you like to address the council at this time? And if you will, give us your name and address for the record. The subject on which you wish to speak is the city towing bid, and again, you have 3 minutes, and when we get to 3 minutes, I have some discretion to extend beyond that if I need to.
Okay. Well, I was going to actually compliment you, so since I only got 3 minutes, I have to avoid that. Actually, I will say you have actually, I give you a lot of respect. I've been supervising people for quite a while, same as I do at Fort Worth Wrecker, and I wouldn't want your job. I couldn't sit here with some of these guys the way they've acted and keep my cool like you have. If all these people were in a standard job, we wouldn't have enough people here tomorrow to open the door. You'd be here. Anyway.
That counts on your 3 minutes, so.
I knew I shouldn't have complimented you.
Well, first of all, and this doesn't count on your 3 minutes, you are limited to speak only on, while I appreciate your comments, believe me, you are limited to only what you've put on the agenda to speak on, and that is on the subject of the towing
Yes, sir.
bid.
And I have it written down so I can get through it quick. I felt that when we put in the bid for the city towing contract, I feel that we weren't given an honest shake on it. I don't think it was done fairly. I don't believe that it should have been discussed in closed council when the people whose cars that you were discussing being towed and them being charged is, that's their business too. And then I sat through a whole meeting to find out that it was decided back there. Why? Because I didn't know exactly, I'm new to this proceedings, and I didn't know that I had a right to say, hey, I want to hear it out here. Okay, so what I wrote down here, just real quick, just a quick statement. We at Fort Worth Wrecker Service have been a tax-paying company in Haltom City for over 25 years. The owner is a resident of Haltom City. We have always tried to help the citizens of Haltom City as much as possible. We price our tows so that the average citizen can afford to tow their car and not cut into their food money. But after seeing the way the city council picked who would do the police tows, it is plain that we may have been the only one in the towing bid that had the low-income citizens' best interest in mind. We put in a bid because we were getting a lot of complaints from citizens about AA overcharging and not releasing vehicles within a 1-hour notice as required by state law. The owner of Fort Worth Wrecker's niece's car had to be towed. The police would not let her call Fort Worth Wrecker. They made her use AA. AA charged her for 2 tow trucks but only used 1 and extra work time that should not have applied. Back about a year ago, the owner of Fort Worth Wrecker gave Mr. Meir a copy of a tow bill from AA that was overpriced. I don't know what happened with that. Obviously nothing, because they're still doing the same thing. I called at 10 p.m. one night and told them that I had a car impounded and didn't get off work until 2 o'clock, and I was told I would have to come the next morning. So in the future, we will tell the citizens when they complain to us to call Austin and report AA. The citizens know how their city council members are acting and how things are going in the city. When you can look around the city all around and you see big businesses, say like the Walmart was mentioned earlier, open all around the city, but nobody wants to be here. Okay, there's a reason for that. Let's see. Also, on the opening bids, I'm not going to finish reading it.
You're at the 3-minute point.
Okay, just 1 more minute?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you'll wrap it up quick.
When we opened the bids in the closed chambers here that day, the bid packet, to the way I felt about it, from AA, did not have a bid sheet in it, or at least it was not found at that time. The person in charge of opening them says, well, there has to be one because AA wouldn't submit a bid without a price sheet. Well, after that, from that point on, I feel like everything was kind of done under the table. A lot of the citizens and business owners told me the reason that we were doomed from the start, we shouldn't even have tried, because AA's been here so long that they're in the good buddy system with the city council, and that's why we didn't stand a chance.
Thank you very much. And you're aware that we can't respond
Yes,
in any
yes, sir,
way.
I know.
You've had your time,
Yes,
and,
sir.
and we thank you for coming, and we thank you for sitting here for 3 hours waiting for an opportunity to speak and let us know your thoughts. Our final speaker under this is Mr. Ray Eklund. Wishes to speak on the senior tax freeze. Mr. Eklund, we're going to do the 3-minute thing, and when we get there, let's...
Fast, Mr. Mayor. Hang on.
Okay, talk fast.
My name's Ray Eklund. I live at 2532 Oakwood Terrace here in Haltom City. I have handed out a package to each of the council members earlier so y'all can follow along. We won't waste any time. Haltom City offers nearly the highest tax exemptions for seniors in Tarrant County. We offer $50,000. There's 4 places that offer more, including South Lake at $75,000. Okay. The page 2, the amount of senior tax exemption allowed by Haltom City and neighboring cities. Our neighbors offer $40,000, $35,000, $36,000, $20,000, and $40,000. We offer 20% more than some of them, 100% more than some of them. The 4 taxing entities out of 56 taxing entities offer more than we do for tax exemptions for seniors. Haltom City has a below average taxable value of $78,201. The average house in Haltom City's value is $78,201, as compared to South Lake, which is $375,000. Okay. This chart on the next page shows us in the middle and below average for Tarrant County, all the different properties. Our seniors in Haltom City currently enjoy the highest percentage tax exemption in Tarrant County. What does that mean? That means the $50,000 as opposed to the $78,000 of the average house is about, what does it say, 64%. Okay. Other cities, Fort Worth say 43, Hearst 28, Richland Hills 23. Okay. What that means is we're very generous in our deductions. The next page is just another layout of that. Richland Hills, Blue Mound, White Settlement have an average home value as close to ours as I could find. All right, we see their figures over here. If you lived in Richland Hills, you'd be taxed on $58,000. If you lived in Haltom City in the same house, okay, you'd be taxed at $28,000. Okay. The next page is a discussion of comparing our values against Richland Hills, Blue Mound, White Settlement. You pay $146 a year in taxes here. You pay $284 in Richland Hills, right next door. Same house, same value. Does the seniors' tax burden compare with neighboring cities? We examined Haltom City versus Fort Worth. Haltom City is 145, Fort Worth 328. Okay, Hearst is 214, Richland Hills is 248, North Richland Hills is 239, and Watauga is 220. As you can see, we're lower than all of them. Haltom seniors save hundreds of dollars under the current tax law compared to other cities based on that discussion we just had. This tax freeze does absolutely nothing to help the needy in our community. All right, the next page is the letter from Tad that nobody's ever mentioned down here when they say we need this thing. There's a letter from Tad. You fill this thing out. You don't have to pay your taxes if you're over 65. They'll just wait until you pass the house on. All you do is sign that piece of paper. What would the senior tax freeze save the average Haltom City person? $20.31 next year. That's this sheet. Okay.
Have you got about 30 seconds of commentary in wrapping this up?
Yes.
Okay.
I know we're going to be visiting again on this in 2 weeks, so we'll go over some more data then. I left these packages with you. I hope that you'll take the opportunity to look over them. Call me anytime. My website is listed on the back page, haltomcitycitizen.com, okay? And you can reach us anytime, day or night, and we will be happy to talk about this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Eklund. And with the Visitor Citizens Forum having been addressed, the council will move at this time into closed session pursuant to section 551.071, .072, .074. But we'll return to open session to take any action that results from executive session. You got it? Got everybody in here? Everybody in the room? Ladies and gentlemen, we're back in open session. The time is 15 till 12. No action to be taken on any item discussed in executive session. The council meeting stands adjourned.